Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
I am Ripper, Terror, Slasher, Gouger. I am the teeth in the darkness, the talons in the night. Mine is strength and lust and power. I am podcast.
Yeah. Of course, you had to.
Right.
Very, very good. Good job. Good job.
What choice did I have?
Good aggro Windstone.
Yeah. It's not the Zisco of Windstone. It's the yelling at you that I am Beowulf.
He's Beowulf.
Oh, right. I'm kind of calm now, but now I'm Beowulf.
How else would you know him Beowulf?
He has to know. Sorry for the misunderstanding here. I should have introduced myself earlier.
I am Beowulf.
What do I know about cholesterol? He used to do this ad. I feel like I've talked about it on the podcast before for like Special K or some healthy cereal.
Wasn't it Weetabix or no? Bob Hoskins was Weetabix.
But at one point he goes, "But what do I know about cholesterol?" It was a great. No one thought you knew anything about cholesterol. It wasn't a problem.
To be fair, I thought he knew a lot about cholesterol.
You did? All right, fair enough. Wait, now I have to look this up. It's for some. Go ahead.
I confirmed that no, because Bob Hoskins was the voice of one of the Weetabix toughs in the commercial where the Weetabix was animated and animate, and he was like,
I'm Weetabix, ain't I?
You're right. Famously in Britain, Bob Hoskins, it's good to talk. He was the voice of British Telecom, right? But now I'm trying to figure out which serial Ray Winstone. God damn it.
Well, David, don't beat yourself up. I mean, you have to look this up. It's the first time you would ever hear this information. This is new to you, and you wouldn't even know where to look.
It was called Optivia. Optavia?
It was a cereal?
Yeah, I'm watching the ad now. When it comes to food, there's a bit of a nanny culture thing going on. Food is, don't do that, do this. He's just like monologuing at us, like talking about like they're always nannying us.
When from?
That's a great question. 2006.
Around this time.
He's
feeding you Optivia and teaching you about ancient Norse culture simultaneously.
Right. Getting this big Beowulf paycheck.
Getting that wolf money.
Top billed in $100 million American animated film. Can I throw out a couple other quotes from this Beowulf IMDb quote page?
Go ahead.
Wiglaf.
Best character.
Bracket.
Best character.
Stabbing at Grendel's crotch.
I swear the bastard has no pintle.
That's Old English, Griffin.
That's Old English.
It propels the plot, though, because when he discovers that his eardrums are his pintle, he says something to the tune of, "The pintle!" pointing at his eardrums.
The pintle.
Yeah.
Here's another classic quote from the movie Beowulf, the 2007 Robert Zemeckis Beowulf film. King Hrothgar, during Grendel's attack, and then here's the quote.
A sword! Give me a sword!
Is that it?
Yeah, remember that quote?
I mean, you're getting mad at the IMDb quotes page for Beowulf now. Now you're just picking fights.
Okay, but what about this one? What about this quote from Wiglaf? Okay, Wiglaf.
Wiglaf's a great character.
Wiglaf rules.
Load of laughs.
I agree, and here's a great quote from a great character. Ready? Wiglaf, seeing the dragon for the first time.
Odin swaffing balls.
All right, that one's good. Come on, that one's good. I swear to God.
Swiving means to lay with a woman.
Wow, so his balls fuck? You're telling me that this guy's balls fuck?
Hey, it was ancient times. What can I tell you?
Wiglaf. Hello, everybody. This is a little podcast called Blank Check with Griffin and David. My name is Griffin.
I am David.
This is Beowulf.
This is a podcast about filmographies.
Yeah.
Directors who have massive success early on in their career to give a series of blank checks, make whatever crazy passion products they want. Sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce, baby.
It's a Mayfield series on the films of Robert Zemeckis, that tricky Bobby Z, And today we're talking about, I was going to say one of his weirder entries, but this would be a weirder entry in almost anyone else's filmography. And instead you're just like, oh yeah, another Zemeckis movie.
Yeah, it is. Well, he has made a lot of weird movies. I guess it's tough for me to.
No, it's the weirdest.
It's very weird.
It's very weird. But here's the thing. I feel like in someone else's career, this would be uncontested the weirdest. And instead, this is in that batch of 5 where you have to like wrestle with which one might be weirdest.
No, this is the weirdest. It's the one that looks like a PS2 cutscene where there's like jizz all over a fake Angelina Jolie in a cave.
Excuse me, golden jizz.
That's true. That's true.
It's
Introduce our
golden.
guest, Griffin.
Well, I was trying to start the show quickly, get the introductions out of the way quickly, because our guest needs no introduction, hence why we have not introduced him the previous times he's been on the show. Apparently a sticking point.
No, not at all. It's just, when you're a guest on a popular podcast, your introduction is the thing you look forward to the most. Anybody who says otherwise is lying. And the 2 times I've been on the show prior, my introduction has come about 11 seconds before we were all out the door.
I mean, a classic bit, though. It's a classic
bit.
bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a classic bit.
You are notorious for usually, I mean, let's say this is the reason I've always held off your introduction for the last minute. You think so thoroughly that a podcast peaks when you're introduced that you tend to leave the show right after your introduction.
Right.
You're notorious for bailing post-intro.
Beowulfling. I don't
David.
know. I'm sorry.
David.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
David.
That was amazing.
I tried to leap on that and it just blew up in my face.
David, you have to leave.
I'm gonna go.
You have to bail a wolf on this podcast.
You can't do the same joke that I was about to do. Come on.
I've made it cleaner. Do you hear it? I didn't stumble on it. I didn't hit any speed bumps.
Yeah,
I
all
didn't
right,
bail a wolf.
fine. Jesus.
There are no wolves in Beowulf.
That dog in the beginning kind of has some wolf characteristics.
It's a fair point. I guess there's no absolute wolf characters. But there are a lot of wolves roaming around back then, right? Like it was more of an issue.
I mean, yeah, maybe there are no wolves exactly to speak of in this episode, but this movie is full of some dirty dogs. You know what I'm saying?
That is true.
Everyone at home lean in for that joke.
This movie's like wall-to-wall wolf whistles. This is his horniest movie. I mean, that's kind of what's most fascinating about it, is he's this filmmaker where you feel like he's just keeping his horniness at bay. Like he's trying not to go full horny on main, but it's always like it's right there. He always got one scene where it peeps out and you're just like too horny, Bobby. And this movie, he's like, ah!
Okay.
It's very horny.
I have a couple things to say to that. One, you're probably right. It's probably his horniest movie. You are forgetting Marwyn is horny in its own way.
I think this is hornier.
Yeah, I think it is too. But two, this movie is like so completely subsumed in fears of castration,
Yes.
like in the most like basic Freudian male sexual like terror, that like horny isn't even the word. It definitely, there's a lot going on sexually with this movie.
It's his weird Catholic guilt movie.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
In certain ways, look, there's a lot to dig into here, but our guest today, you know him from the Blue Steel episode.
Sure.
Kids went crazy for that.
You know him from our Melvin and Howard episode. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Jordan Hoffman is here
Oh, wait, hold on.
to talk Beowulf. Oh my God, applause. Oh my God.
It's a big day. It's a big day. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all.
What a pleasure.
It's a pleasure, Griffin. And Dave Sims. Dave, you and I normally see one another on the reg in a
once a week, maybe more.
non-pandemic era. And
Right.
we have not seen each other in a long time. So it's really nice to see you through the I know this is an audio show for the
No,
people
but we
listening.
can see each other, on the screen.
Yeah. So it's nice. You look beautiful.
Oh, come
Oh,
on.
that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And Ben, you
but
look
no.
nice too.
Oh,
Everybody
yeah.
looks nice.
I miss, just trekking up to the AMC Lincoln Square, like at 7:00 on a Monday to see, whatever underwater.
This year's
right?
Beowulf.
Yeah, exactly. And thinking like, this sucks.
Do you remember when you used to like complain about screenings?
Right? Yeah.
We'd record an episode and you'd be like, ugh, Now I
have to go uptown, right, to see Sonic the Hedgehog.
Right.
And now it's just like I would crawl across broken glass to see Sonic the Hedgehog in a theater.
Yeah, at a fucking 9 p.m. matinee. Do you remember that the glory days when we got to see Sonic at 9 p.m. on a Saturday?
You mean 9 a.m.?
9 a.m., sorry.
Right, that was a morning screening. Did you see Sonic, Jordan? Were you there? Were you one of the few, the chosen few?
I think I did miss that one. I did miss that one.
It had Sonic in it.
But I've done my share of those Saturday 9 a.m.s. You know, I've seen Hop with what's his name?
Russell Brand.
There you go. Yeah.
Right, he was Hop.
He was second runner-up for Beowulf. He was almost Beowulf.
He would have been great. Could you imagine?
Swaggering in. Imagine it.
Oh, I'm Beowulf. Grendel, mind going around the corner shop and pick me up some kippers. Right? That's what they do in England, right? They go to...
Absolutely.
That would have come up.
He would have prank phone called Grendel on his radio show and made jokes about having sex with Grendel's mother.
Oi, Grendel, I had a bang with your mum. Isn't that how they do it?
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing I've been thinking about recently. I don't think I said this on this podcast. I think I said this maybe somewhere off mic to you, David.
Okay.
Sonic the Hedgehog is currently the last film to make $100 million at the domestic box office, right?
I believe that's accurate. I can't imagine what else.
It comes out in February. It has a big, big opening. It's the last film that opened strong enough and had enough time afterwards to make easily over $100 million.
Yes.
It had legs. It had legs. Blue furry legs.
And they went like this. Fast. They just went like a wheel. How long do we think it is before another film crosses $100 million?
It's a great question.
Right? Like, how long is Sonic the Hedgehog going to hold on to that title as the last blockbuster?
I hope a long time.
Years.
Monster Hunter?
But Monster Hunter, right, that's supposed to come out when? January, February?
Christmas?
Is it still on Christmas? I feel like it's one of the only movies that hasn't moved.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't want to be too optimistic, but they are announcing today. I mean, not to put a timestamp.
There was encouraging news today about the
news from two places about vaccine, and then there's a second news item that they have a therapy drug. And did you see the name of this therapy drug?
It's like Bob, Black Betty, Bam and Am. I don't know, something like that.
It's a ridiculous name. I mean, could you imagine the world being saved by a medicine called?
Are you gonna look it up?
Bamlanivimab.
Yes, Bamlanivimab. Bamlanivimab. What the hell? How do they come up with these?
I think they were in like a cave with Angelina Jolie and Grunting the Sword and various North totems, and a genie said Bamlanivimab.
I'm gonna just call it Bam Margera for short.
Viva la Bam.
Yeah, Bam.
Viva la Bam.
Hook me up with some Bam. But the Bam might do the trick, and I'll take a little Bam. You know, why not?
At the time we're recording, there was a Deadline story today about how, like, Wonder Woman is the one big movie still on the schedule for Christmas. We're recording this in early November, and that it's like the theater chains are making the last big plea to California, LA, New York government officials to get them to open the theaters in time for Christmas, because apparently, like, this is the week where Warner Brothers needs to pull the trigger on the marketing campaign or give up on releasing it this year.
There's a lot of rumors that it'll get bumped to the summer.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're like throwing out the last Hail Mary pass.
Right.
I have mixed feelings. It's a shitty situation. I don't know if you can cuss, but it's a shitty situation.
Of course you can.
I don't like to cuss. You know me. I'm family man. But you know, speaking of cussing, in this here Robert Zemeckis motion picture, you'll hear Costas Mandalore's voice in a shitty CG Thane from God knows where, saying to a busty wench, "Come on, my mighty lust limb can transport you to paradise, to ecstasy and back. No other man will ever be able to satisfy you again."
That's Old English, Jordan. I mean, that's
right.
Poetry.
That's you're supposed to walk into the room saying that in a booming voice. Yeah, into a mead hall.
Directly from the poem, I'm pretty sure. That's a direct translation.
I got a quick follow-up question for you, Jordan. that busty wench, wiping down the tables, who has an extended sequence where they cut back and forth between her and Mandalore, and her pendulous breasts just swing and jiggle in glorious 3D PlayStation 3 level graphics.
I think you want to say. I think it's 3 double D, Griffin. Come on. I mean,
oh wow.
Do you know who plays that wench?
No. I wish I did.
Leslie Zemeckis. Leslie Zemeckis.
Wow.
This is a through line. He gets remarried to a woman who I believe at that point in time is predominantly a burlesque performer.
Yes, I can look it up officially.
It happens right before the motion capture era, but there is a burlesque marionette in Polar Express that I swear is modeled after her. This character is modeled after her, played by her, and then she's also one of the women of Marwen. He loves making these really horny, sexualized depictions of his wife in these CGI movies.
That's a great story. I mean, that means that warms the cockles of my heart. I mean,
who says romance is dead?
She isn't indeed credited in the Polar Express, in Beowulf, in Marwen. She's also credited in A Christmas Carol, so we got to watch out for her in that one.
I'm looking here at the credits. The
Fred's
Ghost of
wife.
Boner's Future. Oh, Fred's wife. Okay.
Oh boy, God, that's the one I'm the least looking forward to.
Well, I mean, so right before that, you're right. Before this scene, she's wiping down the table. Costas Mandalore says that his loins are burning by looking at her, and then there's a joke. Now, so there's a joke right before the line I just quoted, "My muddy lust limb can transport you to paradise." When they're outside and there's a noise, and he's like, "Well, was that your demon?" And she says, "No, that was a wolf. You don't hear Grendel when he comes." And he goes, "Well, you'll hear me, I promise."
Yes.
Now, what's amazing is that this movie's PG-13.
PG-13. This is a PG-13
and
film.
it is animated. And they were pushing, and we're going to get into this, I'm sure. They were pushing the 3D in this movie.
Hard.
This movie was a line in the sand before Avatar. Before Avatar, there was Beowulf.
This was the first modern digital 3D movie on 1,000 screens. This was the widest release.
Nobody remembers it. That's why this episode of this podcast is significant and important, and we all should be excited. So it's for kids. This movie's for kids.
It's Cliff Notes. If I was in school, I'd watch this as Cliff Notes, baby. I'm not reading this shit. I'm watching this movie.
Here's the thing, Ben. Here's the thing. If you watched this as Cliff Notes and then went into school and used this movie, your teacher would be like, I don't know.
You've
got
a wild reading on that poem. Do you know, Ben, none of the sex stuff is in the poem.
Oh, boy.
The king isn't Grendel's father. Beowulf isn't the dragon's father.
That would be an awkward book report. So okay, noted.
You just
don't do what I just
describing fucking.
But your teacher would know. It's like, oh, you saw that horny Costas Mandalore, didn't you?
You saw him.
That was pretty.
You blame it on man.
All right. Well, okay. We got to pull this back.
Okay.
We got to pull this
pull way back.
All right. We're here to talk about Beowulf. Obviously, podcast away. Robert Zemeckis. Beowulf. So. The 8th century. No, I'm kidding.
What?
Further.
We got to go all the way back to the 8th century.
What's the first line of Beowulf, this movie?
What's the first line of the movie or of the poem?
I can tell you what it is. It's a shredding guitar line.
It sure is.
It basically sounds like corn. But after you hear some corn and they chant Hrothgar enters, puny little CG, awful looking Anthony Hopkins, and he says, "I want mead."
Oh, wow.
He does. Oh, are you setting up your...
Yeah, I'm setting some up. Now, I wish we could be there today in person. That's the sad thing about this being the pandemic, because I happen to have here, and I'm going to uncork it for you. I have, and this is no joke, I know, I have a bottle of mead here.
Whoa.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
I have a bottle of mead. I'm going to drink a little mead while we do our show, and I'm going to.
Yeah, I mean, a little of that stuff goes a long way.
I'm going to put it in a original Star Trek 3, the Search for Spock glass.
Let's see it. Let's see. I want to see that glass.
Yeah, Taco Bell put these out a long time ago.
Well, Hoffman, I feel like I have to match you, my good man. So I am going to.
Do you have mead also?
No, I have a raspberry flavored White Claw, and I'm going to pour that into a C-3PO tiki mug.
Oh, nice. All right.
Jesus, now I want to drink.
L'chaim.
Now, mead is essentially like fermented honey. I think I've had it once or twice.
It was like the White
it's
Claw
weird.
of its day. Overly sweet. It's a good trainer for middle schoolers who have stolen some drinks.
It's like lean. It's like now the kids have lean. Back then they had mead.
Kids love lean.
The thing about mead is it's an ancient drink.
Yes.
But so is wine and beer. People still drink wine and beer. They don't drink mead, and for a very good reason.
Right.
It's terrible.
I think that the wine and beer of the day would baffle our tongues, right? Like I think they've evolved, they've modernized.
But even so, mead was the sweeter option. Mead was your Smirnoff Ice, your Mike's Hard, your White Claw.
Right,
Your
sure.
Four Loko was your mead.
Yeah. So I'm drinking mead. Hrothgar loved his mead, and I'm having some today too.
Oh, another phone call. All right, click. Hello.
Marty!
Oh my gosh.
Marty.
Wow, Doc Brown.
Marty, there's an issue.
I'm not Marty, but what's the issue?
All my tapes are disappearing, Marty.
Your tapes your videotapes, your VHSs?
My tapes. My
Wow.
Super 8, even my cassette tapes of all recordings, Marty. My still photographs, they're all disappearing. They're fading from existence, Marty.
Oh, sure. Right. And you're maybe looking for a way to keep them for the long term, maybe store them somewhere safe.
I have to, Marty. Before they disappear from the space-time continuum.
I have a suggestion for you. It's just interesting to me. You're back. Do you like Beowulf? Are you a Beowulf fan, Doc?
Oh, I can't talk about Beowulf. I can't affect the future of what happens in the rest of this episode.
Okay, all right. Okay, fine. But look, you want to preserve irreplaceable moments. Stuff that you have on tapes, on film reels.
Of me being shot by the Libyans.
Right, exactly. You should get in touch with our friends at Legacy Box. It's a really fascinating and unusual service. There's nothing like it. Basically, these guys are going to send you a box. It's a kit. It's a big old box. It's really easy. You put in anything you want preserved, okay? Tapes, film, like you said, any old analog sort of storage you've got that you want digitized. They can put it on a cloud, on the thumb drive, on a DVD, and they'll give you all the original media back. It's not like they're going to take it.
Even a photo of Marty and I in the Old West.
Sure, exactly. And look, I know you like to keep track of things. They've got a tracking system that's going to monitor every step of the process. Okay. You're always going to know that your originals are being taken care of. They've helped over 1 million families restore and protect their cherished memories. And right now, Doc, they're offering 60% off. You can have everything preserved at once for a fraction of the regular price.
Great Scott. Great deal.
Great deal. Exactly. This is the best deal of the year. Go to legacybox.com/check. Take advantage of this limited time offer and get 60% off. It's an exclusive offer. It won't last long. So order their kit now and send it in whenever you're ready. This is a sale to remember. Go to legacybox.com/check. Save 60% off while supplies last.
Marty, I know I told you that I cannot warn you about the future, so as to not disrupt the space-time continuum, but I must break the rules and let you know. Towards the end of this episode, Jordan Hoffman and Crispin Glover are going to go on a run about deli menu items. Let them do it.
Okay. That sounds like something I might want to cut off, but okay.
Let them. It won't go on too long. Bye, Marty.
So we're here to talk Beowulf as we drink our mead in our beer hall. Jordan, you demanded to be on this episode. You said you were at the premiere. Am I making that up?
I was at the big event screening in New York.
In
I
New
don't
York,
think it was
right?
the
It wasn't
premiere,
the Hollywood premiere or whatever, but it was, whatever.
I feel like you threw out your shot to be on this episode before Zemeckis had even won March Madness. Like it was like in the early rounds, you were like, if Zemeckis wins, I'm doing Beowulf.
Yeah, because this movie is fascinating. It's
Fascinating.
It's a fascinating blend.
It is
of a lot of stuff. And when we get to some of the performances, when we get to Screwy, what's his name? When we get to the guy, Crispin Glover. When we get to Crispin Glover, I have a little tale to tell. I have an oral poem, an epic poem to tell. I'll light the bonfire and tell you an amazing story. But
excited for that.
I do like. I mean, I have extremely mixed feelings about this motion picture. I want to know what you guys think.
I do too. I do think it's good. On the if you made me decide, but it's certainly a mixed feeling thing. I can't hate this movie. It's too much fun.
I come down pro, but it's one of those movies where watching it, you're like, this should rule.
Right.
Like, I should unabashedly love this. And there's obviously the technical barrier that the film is so much a product of the filmmaking process at the time, them overreaching beyond their means. But also there's just something that doesn't totally connect. It's not just that. It's an odd beast.
The screenplay is lopsided, but the thing is this: there's an inherent paradox in this film, which is the technical barrier is huge. The movie just looks atrocious. I mean, there are moments that are cool. The movement is good. But the dead eyes, the uncanny valley,
the waxy
it's
faces,
unbearable. Yes. Yeah, it is. So it is inherently a failure. And you say to yourself, well, if this was shot as a quote unquote real movie and not in this weird computer generated thing, it would be amazing. But you could never do it. It would cost $700 billion and 20 people would have died. You can't make this movie like this. You can't do a shot for shot recreation of this with live action. It just can never be done.
No.
That's the big quote. Avary and Gaiman write this as a script because Avary had gotten hired to try to adapt Sandman in one of the many misbegotten attempts to make a Sandman movie.
Yes.
They got close. Avary and Gaiman started talking Beowulf. I think it was Avary who had this reading of all this sort of sexual misconduct within Beowulf.
Yeah.
The fact that you never really understood the relationships, who Grendel's father was, where the dragon
I want to
came
get
from.
all into that. I'm going to believe me. There's
We'll get into it.
Yes.
But I guess I'll let you splay that all out. But to jump ahead, it was a script that Zemeckis
was producing,
signed on to produce, and Avary was going to direct as a $20 million movie.
Roger Avary.
Roger Avary, who had won an Oscar for Pulp Fiction. This is before Laws of Attraction, post Killing Zoe. He wanted to make a scrappy, sort of Excalibur-style, low-budget medieval film.
Scrappy Wolf.
Right. So he wrote a scrappy, talky Beowulf with this reading of the text with Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman.
Sir Neil Gaiman. Zemeckis comes on as a producer. For years, it just doesn't get off the runway. Then, post Polar Express, when he was like, fuck it, more mocap, he goes back to them and says, I could get your script greenlit tomorrow, but you have to let me direct it because I think the way to do it is with mocap. And the big thing he says to them is, I want you to rewrite it and make it as big as you possibly can.
Because they had written it budget consciously. Right. And he was like, forget it.
But the line he says that I remember repeating so much through the press at the time, as they were trying to sell this movie as like, it's this fucking hardcore adult action epic. The reason it's animated isn't because it's for kids. It's because you could never do this shit in live action. And his big quote that he always repeated was, I went to Gaiman and Avary and said, there is nothing you could possibly write which would cost me more than $1 million per minute.
And for a 90-minute movie, that's nothing to sneeze at, or maybe it's 2 hours. But yeah, all right, that works.
Hair under. But it very much is directed with that energy of just like, I'm going to do every fucking thing I've never been able to do as a filmmaker before.
I mean, he rides a dragon with like bodies flying everywhere. He dislodges his own arm. And then he's got like basically full frontal Angelina Jolie in a PG-13 movie. What a time.
Incredible chain work.
A lot of chain work.
Off the chain. So good.
And he did it on Polar Express, but all the camera stuff and the zooming through things and the, flipping around the room like crazy and all that. Like, that's great.
Let's also say this. For as much as this movie does not look good, having just watched Polar Express and watching this and knowing those movies are 3 years apart, this is like a seismic advance.
That's the thing. And I wonder if Christmas Carol will feel like that too. Like, is it all big leaps? Because yes, this looks way better than Polar Express, even though they still have the creepy flat faces. Like, you just can't get past the creepy flat faces. There are other things where you're like, oh, it looks okay.
there are some shots that really work.
Yes.
I mean, it's on a shot by shot. There's some shots you're like, yeah, fucking A, Beowulf, this movie rocks. And then they just do a cut to a close up of Malkovich, and you're like, I'm in hell. Yeah. I'm in a dimension of hell.
Malkovich, man.
It's also this thing. I think they hadn't the technology was not advanced enough to pick up certain types of actors. There were only certain kinds of performances that even translated onto these models. And someone like Malkovich, who's such an energy actor, like he's a very subtle application of energy aside from when he screams. There's not enough being captured there to get anything other than fucking wax figure.
Right. That's a good point because, Winston plays Beowulf one note. He's screaming like a lunatic, he's a monster. But, Malkovich is giving a genuine performance, and so's Anthony Hopkins a little bit. And they come off much worse because there's attempt at nuance, there's attempt at being an actual human being, and you can't do that. The what's her name? Frowny McSad, the queen in this.
Robin Wright.
Yeah, she comes off awful. That's a disaster.
Well, she looks like a painting. Like that. Like her face just does not move at all.
And she's so unappealing. And you're like, Beowulf can have any wench in the mead hall, and he's stuck on her.
Leslie Zemeckis, right there.
I mean, I hate to say it, but she at least
the boss's wife.
She was lively. I mean, that shot of her, as you put it, 3D pendulous breasts is meant for humor. It looks weird, but there's more life in that than in Robin Wright, who's supposed to be the the one you're in love with.
I think Bobby spent 20% of the budget on the breast shot.
On the boobs.
He just kept on saying, "Sir, I think we're done with this sequence. Another pass. I have more notes."
Yeah, it's so the visual aspect is weird, but then also something that watching it now you don't know, the 3D was so great, so that when you saw it in the theaters. I mean, I don't know if it was as good as Avatar, but it was in the same ballpark. And I remember when people going nuts for Avatar, I was like, hey, where were you last summer? Didn't you see Beowulf? And they're like, no, that looked dumb. So I didn't see it. First of all, it's every bit as dumb as Avatar. They're equally dumb.
This was 2 years earlier, and it absolutely felt like the dry run for Avatar. And I even feel like the entertainment press was positioning it as like, this is the first glimpse we're going to see of the kind of technology that Cameron's working with. Because everyone knew that movie was going to be like advancement in motion capture, advancement in digital 3D. And most of the 3D releases up until this point were like kids movies kind of post-converted, a lot of like Nightmare Before Christmas being re-released, and small limited runs. This was like 1,000 screens were being converted to 3D for this. This is a movie designed for 3D. And I remember convincing a bunch of friends to go see it, only interested where they're like, 3D, what's that even going to look like? It's not red and blue. Like the novelty of just the technology was all it took to convince some friends to drive me to the theater to see it. And then afterwards I was like, and get this, James Cameron is using all that shit that we just saw to make a movie about an alien war. And we were just like, holy fucking shit.
Crashed into a tree. I mean, it was an amazing time. Yeah, and then there was a sort of an interzone between this movie and Avatar. I think the My Bloody Valentine remake came out that had like good 3D.
That has great 3D.
There were a few others. Yeah. And I mean, it's fine.
That's the same year as Avatar.
So,
yes.
Yeah, so there's this weird sort of now 3D is kind of over, but for a few years it revolutionized. The people listening now who are a little younger maybe don't remember. There was a psychosis, a 3D psychosis at the end of the aughts that really changed theatrical moviegoing, mostly for the worse because you'd go to the local Regal and they'd leave the 3D lens cap on the projector, and you'd go to see a non-3D movie. It'd be dark, you couldn't see anything. I mean, it was a very weird time. That's pretty much all gone now.
It's 4DX now. I mean, that's just like
it's now only 4D. 4DX are boss. I've always been a very pro 3D guy. I bought the last 3D television ever produced, not the last actual unit, but the last model.
The last model, right.
The furthest incarnation the technology was ever going to reach in North America. I finally broke down and said, I'll get it. And so
what's on 3D that you can watch? Like just Blu-rays, or can you watch like sports?
There's a button you can hit. No one's broadcasting in 3D anymore. There used to be some deep cable channels that were 3D, and I don't even have cable, and those channels don't even exist anymore. There's a button on the TV that says 3D, which you can use, and it will like auto convert things like Clash of the Titans style, the worst.
That's like a Nintendo 3DS, right? Yes.
And do you need to wear glasses for those?
Yes. So I got the TV that just any sort of like movie theater glasses work.
Wow.
They're the more high-end ones where they're like heavy-duty glasses that require batteries, and it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
I got the one where you can just use, like, you can steal glasses from the theater. But I've been buying a lot of 3D Blu-rays, especially during quarantine, as I try to make my home feel more like movie-going. And I bought all the Zemeckis movies on 3D so I could watch them this way. Beowulf is the one that was never released on 3D, and it's the one that I argue was the best.
Weird.
Like it really was a great use of 3D in the theater. I saw this in IMAX 3D.
I remember it being fun.
Yeah, it ruled, and you can't see it that way anymore. I blame the death of 3D wholly on the King of Quibi himself, not David Sims, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who, once the first wave of movies were successful, was like the biggest champion of, this is how we fight piracy. Everyone should release their movies in 3D. Every single film should be in 3D. Either you should shoot it or post-convert it, regardless of genre.
Right.
And also, at that point in time, the 3D surcharge was like $1 on top of normal tickets. And Katzenberg was like, we could be making so much more. Make it $4 or $5 surcharge. And that's when things started bombing, and you had shitty conversions, and everyone got burned on it.
And people started like avoiding it at all costs.
Actively. Right. Because like Beowulf, end of 2007. You look at the other 3D movies in 2007, it's Disney's Meet the Robinsons, which got a very limited release. Everything else is a nature documentary, or Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix had 20 minutes in 3D only in IMAX.
Right.
Wow.
So Beowulf is like the first proper one.
Yeah.
Then the following year, you have a lot of like U2 3D, the Hannah Montana 3D movie, which does well. And then Journey to the Center of the Earth, which weirdly overperforms. But that also kind of overperforms because it's like, fuck, this movie's built for 3D.
That movie's also really good.
Never seen it.
Well, all right. Really good is overstating. That movie is tolerable, but not bad.
2009's the turning point, because then you have My Bloody Valentine, Coraline, you have Up, Monsters vs. Aliens, and then like at the end of the Final Destination in 3D, you have like all the animated films are coming out in 3D. Michael Jackson's This Is It, Christmas Carol, and then Avatar at the end of the year, and then it's the fucking thing.
Then they're off to the races. Yeah.
And yes, but Beowulf, guys.
Beowulf.
We're going to talk about the movie Beowulf, not about 3D. Well, we're going to talk about the 3D. Ben, as you were saying, Beowulf the poem, the Old English poem, that's school.
Yeah.
Right? Like that this is a movie. This is a movie that's adapted from school, which I feel like is tricky. Like this is yes, of course, Beowulf is a famous Old English poem of adventure and glory, and you have swords and you have dragons and monsters.
There's nothing more I want to see converted, but an old poem, like
but
a
it's
really old poem. That's what I want to see converted for the modern audience.
It does have this, like, where I feel like
you love dusty poems.
You're dragging people to the theater, Griffin, your friends, and they're like, Beowulf. You're like, well, it's in 3D. You know, come on, that'll be fun.
Well, you know, it's funny. There's two funny things about that. Number one, there's what Beowulf, like. There's the line in Annie Hall. She's like, I want to take classes. What should I take? And he says, well, just don't take anything where they make you read Beowulf. Like Beowulf is the most eat your vegetables of anything in history. And what's interesting is that one of the better aspects of this film is, and I'm going to assign it to Neil Gaiman because it probably is him because he's Mr. Mythology and whatnot. Mm-hmm. There is some cool stuff in here that feels very teacher friendly. Like certainly not the jokes about coming and that, but like there are moments where like a teacher could show it, hit pause and say, you see what they just did? They just used, the blah, blah, blah fallacy or whatever kind of poetry crap they teach you in school. There's some of that, and they talk about geography. They talk about other myths that are
the psychology of Grendel. We're supposed to kind of feel bad for him.
Well, there's that too, 100% that. But also, like, they talk about Fafnir, which is that's the legend from the Götterdämmerung. So that's like a little, maybe they were going for like some sort of like cinematic universe where they do like school poetry cinematic universe, because that's not in the Beowulf poem, I don't think. But they mentioned that. So that's like, oh, we learned about Götterdämmerung last unit. Now he's in this movie. Isn't that cool? That's clearly, at least I think, clearly Gaiman's shtick. And you could see him being like, oh, aren't I clever? Putting that in there. And I think that's really cool. So there is a little bit of that school stuff in there. So, there's a little bit of vegetables in this movie, but it's also just like, I want to whiz the camera around like a lunatic,
yes,
and show violence and crazy action.
Right. But so my wife, Forky, we know her well, star of Toy Story 4, star of Forky Asked a Question, Emmy winner. I'm trying to think of any other credits for Forky.
No.
That's it?
The pandemic's been hard on the whole industry.
That's
I mean,
true.
No one's really booking in the way they were before this. Yeah.
A great utensil.
Great utensil.
Great utensil. Top tier utensil.
She's also an English teacher.
Humble brag.
And she teaches Beowulf to her children.
That's right. What's funny? I've had a conversation with Forky about Gilgamesh, which is the Pepsi to Beowulf's Coke.
It is. Gilgamesh is the other one where it's like the kids are like, this is boring. And it's like, you don't understand. This is the first fucking story that we ever found written down, you nimwit. Just enjoy it, nimwit.
Also, it's an action story. It's a genre piece.
Right. But that's the thing about Beowulf. It's kind of like showing someone Casablanca now and they're like, I don't get it. This is cheesy. And you're like, no. It's doing it first. Like with Beowulf, you're like, yeah, sure. He's a guy. He fights a monster. Like, there's not a lot here. And it's like, no. No one had ever done this before. Literally. Like, this is the first one. So I just think it is a bigger task than one might imagine, right? To adapt essentially the first story about a guy with a sword fighting a monster. It's hard to flesh it out.
Also weird for like one of the oldest existing English texts that there is no definitive Beowulf adaptation. Like, it's weird that in 2007 Zemeckis making a Beowulf movie wasn't treated as Beowulf again.
Yeah, right.
It was just treated as like, fine, do that. Okay.
Well, and I think that speaks to David's point, is that when you read, not that I have since 7th grade, but when you read Beowulf or read the Wikipedia summary as I did today, they're kind of like, there really isn't a story. It's like, there's a guy Beowulf. He kills one monster, kills another one, fights a third one.
He drinks mead. Everyone's drinking mead, though. That's a big detail.
So, I mean, the thing is, it doesn't really lend itself to adaptations, which is why it took Roger Avary this brilliant aha moment of kind of faking it a little bit, and then Gaiman sprinkles his Minotaur pixie dust on top, and and then we get Angelina Jolie in the cave.
It also maybe has a bit of a like John Carter, Princess of Mars problem, where it's like it's such a foundational text that like the most popular works in the American canon all sort of use Beowulf as a stepping stone. So then when you go back to Beowulf, you're just like, there's less meat on the bone here because everyone's taken the ball and run with it.
Right. So I'm watching it with Forky, and she's
Has she ever seen it before?
No, and she's like, well, that's not in the poem. Like, she's noticing the things.
She's read it.
She teaches it.
She teaches it. You fucking kid. She's read it like 1 million times.
She asked the question.
Yes, she asked the question. And then I'm like, right, but like, and I have I studied Beowulf in college, like all good English literature students from the UK. And like, swear to God. But that's the thing. It's like the poem doesn't even really clarify if he kills Grendel's mother. Like, it's pretty bare, but there's a lot of room to play around with. Like, it doesn't get into anything except that Beowulf is a hero and he kills the monsters, and then he gets old and he kills more monsters. Like, that's really, and then the monks got their hands on it and they added some stuff about Jesus. That's what Beowulf is.
Right. That was Avery's aha moment by all accounts, was, they never actually make it clear if he kills Grindelwald's mother. Grindelwald, Jesus Christ! I've been making Grindelwald jokes all
Wait,
day.
the crimes? Crimes?
The media won't report on this. It's insane. His crimes are numerous.
Oh, Grindelwald. Yes, they're right. Finish your point.
Never make it clear in the original poem whether or not Grendel's mother is actually defeated. And Avary said, oh, there's kind of an interesting unreliable narrator thing going on here. There's sort of an implication that he succeeded, but it's never actually made clear. What reasons would Beowulf have to cover this up? And then he sort of unpacks this line of sexual misdeeds for which society is punished forever. These life-ruining trysts.
It's not exactly a feminist film.
No.
Beowulf is so boring as a written hero that Roger Avary is and Gaiman are like, you can't, this guy has to be like hiding shit. Otherwise, like, he's just really, really boring. Like, we just have to assume that there's more going on here because there can't be a movie if there isn't.
Well, and also
so pride is the curse. That was the tagline.
The Hopkins character, the king in the poem, is
Hrothgar,
never under threat from Grendel. Grendel never even tries to attack him, and they were like, "There's something weird going on there too." And there was this thought, because the text was then sort of finally committed to paper by these monks, that like perhaps this story was in an oral tradition and then got sanitized.
Got futzed with a little bit.
Right. These men of the cloth took some shit out of it. So this is like...
edited for television. Yeah.
Right. This isn't your Bible's Beowulf, you know? Yeah. I keep on wanting to say Grindelwald.
Grindelwald, he could show up in here. You know, you never know. Is Roger Avary in jail by the time this comes out? When did he go to jail?
I think right
No,
after.
2008.
Yeah, right after.
Right after.
Yeah, he went into The Rock going like, hey, man, I made Beowulf. Nothing can touch me.
Yeah. He's out now. He made a movie. Lucky Day?
If you say so.
That's what it's called. That's what it's called. I'm just saying.
You know, what's funny is the animation style with the actors. You know, we talked about Mr. Zemeckis' wife and obviously Angie and Hopkins. Ray Winstone does not look like that. Like everybody kind of looks.
It's interesting.
Everybody kind of.
Everyone looks like themselves.
Yeah. Brendan Gleeson looks like himself. Malkovich looks like himself. Ray Winstone is a man who likes his Weetabix or whatever it was from earlier. He's a hefty gentleman. But they make this look like he's, totally cut. And what's funny is that the other big thing that was happening in 2007, and it's a very important movie in comparison to Beowulf, and it's a lesser film, is a masterpiece by a film director named Zack Snyder. It's a movie called 300. And 300 is a complicated film that opens a door to a big discussion. I don't know how much of that we want to get into, but
I think we got it.
It's not a masterpiece, but I know I know this is your opinion.
I really think that 300 is an important film. It turns the page on a lot of things.
That's different.
Yeah. See, I don't like it, and I would not even begin to argue anything other than it being one of the most important films of that decade.
Okay, fair enough. It's very, very important because it has all the things, the visual things that it has. And this movie has its own visual shtick it's doing, which is much, much worse. But more weird and fun things happen in Beowulf than in 300.
Definitely. 300 is really boring. And that I remember that being my biggest beef with it. Just like, it was weirdly dull for a movie about constant war and violence and kicking people into big holes and all that,
I mean, okay, I'm not going to argue that, but I disagree. But I definitely think that you could say that it's, it affected film grammar and the technology and the look and all that stuff. But there are connections. This is 300 had the line, "This is Sparta," right? There were T-shirts with that, and clearly. Well, I don't think this movie. This was a Newton Leibniz thing because they came out the same year. So Beowulf did not copy off of 300, but the marketing of Beowulf wanted to make the line "I am Beowulf." That autumn,
Beowulf.
300 came out in March, and the kids were running around saying, "This is Sparta." That the kids were saying it. I saw them, and then. I did. Do you want to know how I saw them?
Yeah.
In March of 2007, my job was as, and this.
I thought that was going to be a rhetorical.
No.
Yeah, me too.
Go ahead.
This leads to my big story later. But in March of 2007, I worked as a licensed New York City tour guide. That was how I made wages, and that was what I did. And I liked the job. There was no money in it, so I eventually quit. But I took school kids around, and I did the double-decker buses, and I yapped about historical spots in New York City. And I took a bunch of Canadian school kids to friggin' Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, right? On the boat. You do the circuit. And they went to the statue, they went upstairs, they look around, and then we got to wait for the next ferry. And we're killing time. And these were like 13, 14-year-old kids. And it was March. There was like dead branches on the ground. So a bunch of the kids are taking the dead branches and they're hitting each other as they do. Nice. And they're screaming, "This is Sparta." And I'm like, what? Okay, a little Tommy, well, they were Canadian, so little Jacques, little Francois. Why are you shouting about Sparta? What are you talking about? And they're like, you haven't seen 300 yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't seen it. What is it? And they go, it's the best movie I've ever seen. And the whole school agreed. The kids were loving it, and they were telling me about Sparta, and it worked, and it was a huge hit. It changed popular culture. So clearly they wanted to tap into that with Beowulf because it's similar shtick, swords and magic and all that crap. So
and 300 absolutely stole this movie's thunder. Like, I feel like there was a lot of buzz around this movie. If not excitement, people were curious about it when it was announced. Yeah. And then 300 was such a revolution that this movie couldn't look like anything other than like, leftovers. And 300 weirdly went into it with like the bolder visual style, the visual style that on paper seemed riskier versus this. And everyone loved what 300 was doing. I say everyone, but like the public loved it. And this, everyone was like, it looks creepy.
Exactly. It looks, that's what it is. The uncanny valley. But, it's just so funny. So, yeah. How many times does Ray Winstone declare himself to be Beowulf in this? At least 5 times.
Yeah, a half dozen. Yeah, easy. But I need to get back to the point you made of he doesn't look like Ray Winstone.
No.
Now, Ray Winstone claims that he kind of looked like this when he was younger. I've seen like Scum. I've seen like the movies Ray Winstone was in when he was young. He didn't look like this.
Wait, he was in a movie called Scum?
Ben. You would legit love this movie. Do you know what Scum is about?
No, it sounds good.
Scum is about a boy, he's a young man, played by Ray Winstone, who goes to a borstal, which is like an old, like fashioned British prison for youths. Like they're really tough places where, bad kids would go.
Okay. I thought you said fashion prison, and I was like going off on a whole thing about what that would be, but old fashioned. Okay, continue.
You still have that premise. You can put that in your back pocket, Ben.
Yeah, I actually will.
And it's about him, he meets like Banks, who's like the current daddy of the prison. Like he's the boy who's kind of in charge of shit, and it's about Ray Winstone becoming the daddy.
Oh shit, that sounds fucking good.
There's like a big fight with like a lead pipe. Like it is the most. When you're a kid in Britain, everyone sees that movie because it's like it's about being
you had me
man.
at lead pipe. I'm checking it out.
Oi, I got me lead pipe.
Right. And he didn't look like what he looks like, it's inescapable in this movie, is Sean Bean, right? Yeah. He kind of looks, to the extent that I had to say to Forky, like, it's not Sean Bean. Like, it's actually Ray Winstone. Like, but do you think there's no way, because like Zemeckis cast Ray Winstone. There's no. Okay.
I have a little answer for you.
Go ahead.
So much like how on Polar Express, there are like 4 people credited for each part, because like, if Hanks is playing one character, then he needs someone else to fill in for that. They had children playing the child parts to get the physical dimensions right, but then also adults playing the child parts, like all these things. There's a lot of doubling on this movie. And so Ray Winstone did do the entire movie. And Zemeckis did say, my intent is to age you down. I want your gravitas, but I want him to look like you at a younger age, ripped beyond you the point you ever were, right? But they also got this guy, Alan Richson, Alan Richson is this guy who was like on the superhero runway for the last 15 years. He played one of the Ninja Turtles, which is why I know him, because I screen tested alongside him.
You mean he played one of the in the new the Michael Bay produced?
Right. He was one of the mocap Ninja Turtles in the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles. I think he was Raphael. He also was like Aquaman on Smallville, and then now he's on Titans, the DC Universe show.
Sure.
He's one of these guys who just looks like a fucking corn-fed all-American football player, and he keeps on getting into these like almost superhero roles. And he hired Richson to be like physical model and to also be like a motion capture reference for someone's body moving with the right dimensions.
I'm seeing him, and he kind of looks like a very cheap version of he looks like Beowulf.
It's a mashup. Right. So I think he took some elements of young Winstone, mapped them on to young Richson, used more of Richson in the action scenes, more of Winstone in the acting
the
scenes.
Oratory.
Right.
I mean, Ray Winstone is a great actor. I love Ray Winstone, to be clear. He's the best. This is a great time for him where he's suddenly popping up in like The Departed, and he's not really changing his accent, and you don't really care, like, even though he's playing a Boston, gangster called Mr. French.
Let's go get some Dunkin'.
Like, he's such a delight. He's he's in Crystal Skull, right? That's a year from now, right?
Yes.
Another one where he's like, yeah, it's me, your friend Mac, right? Like, it's just bananas. I feel like he has now dipped. He was in Cats, though. I will say he was in Cat. I haven't seen a lot of Ray Winstone recently, but he did pop up in Cats.
But this was the couple of
he's
years.
Good in Cats, right?
I think he rules in Cats. This was the couple of year run. It tends to happen for like a UK
British character actors, right?
Where at some point you hit a couple of years where it's just like you're going to be one of the go-tos. You're going to have 4 years of paychecks you won't believe, and then like you'll return to normal and you'll go back to having the.
It's like Mark Strong. Mark Strong had that run. He was in everything, and now he's not.
Right, like Sexy Beast was kind of like reactivated Ray Winstone in his 40s, and then for 5 years Hollywood just was paying him like $1 million. You have to imagine for all these movies.
Exactly. Yeah. So good for him. I'm glad he did it. Sean Bean kind of should play Beowulf. Sean Bean has a northern accent. He's a Yorkshire accent. And like Beowulf is he's not Ray Winstone has a Cockney accent. He sounds like he's from London. Like he is from London. Like, and Beowulf in this movie sounds like a working class Londoner. And he's supposed to be from the land of the Geats. He's supposed to be this like freaking, Viking warrior dude. And it's weird.
Don't you think that's part of the interpretation, and especially Zemeckis trying to move it away from feeling like homework, is like, we're going to give Beowulf this like football hooligan energy. Like he's like a fucking rowdy bar dude. He's a pub brawler.
He had recently played King Henry VIII in like a British TV series. And I remember that. And at the time it was seen as like, oh, this is weird because like Ray Winstone's not posh, and he played it very Ray Winstone. And apparently Zemeckis had seen that and liked that. So that was also, so you're right. Yeah, he's probably like, right, he'll bring some gritty street realism to this fucking poem movie.
Because I think both this and 300 had this similar goal of like, okay, Gladiator was like 7 years ago now. It failed to bring on the new wave of sword and sandal epics that people thought would come. Everyone else who tried to do it afterwards, it didn't click, including the times that Ridley tried to return to the well, right?
Yeah.
But you do have Lord of the Rings, which this is also drafting off of.
But that's I think part of their decision is like, okay, so Lord of the Rings was like fantasy, and then that spawns the sort of like children's book adaptation thing. You have your Aragons and your Narnias. It kind of gets lumped in more with the Potter thing. Whereas Gladiators, like, that's like old-fashioned adult sword and sandals. Then the follow-ups don't hit. And then I feel like this and 300 in the same year are like, we want to make these fucking movies feel edgy and urgent again. It's like this real appeal to like, how do you make these things feel fucking hardcore?
I know how you do it. You open the movie with two guys taking a whiz, but with their skirts in their mouths because they got to hold them in their teeth. so they don't get their skirts wet while they whiz on the side of the mead hall. That's like in the opening montage.
It's a wild movie. I mean, it just feels like, yeah, he just wants shit to be happening at all times on screen. I was so certain in my memory that this movie was R-rated. And I watched on iTunes, I bought the unrated cut, which is like 5 minutes longer, makes 0 changes to story, no added scenes. It's just like 5 minutes worth of shots that were either, you have to imagine, cut out at the last second or blood that was removed. And it's just like more sexual shit.
Right.
Yeah, and more blood.
That sounds good, actually. Honestly, that sounds great. That sounds fun and super metal.
Yeah, it fits in the metal tone. But it also, I think that was another goal of this movie is like, Zemeckis at this point was all in on mocap. Like he was saying, I'm going to only make mocap movies for the rest of my life. This is the future. This is the technology. I'm fully committed to being the guy who like makes this shit break through, uses my clout to advance the technology so that other filmmakers can use it, let me go through all the weird growing pains. And B, he was like, you can do anything in this technology.
Have you ever seen behind the scenes footage of Beowulf? Because it's you know, they call it the volume, right? They call it the volume. It's like a gymnasium. And there's footage of Crispin Glover as Grendel barging into shit. And they just have like big foam blocks. They're just like, go, all right, and action, just destroy these foam blocks. And Crispin Glover, who is incredibly committed to this performance in a remarkable way, and I say this with no sarcasm, he's really, really good doing whatever the hell it is that he's doing in this.
I agree with that.
And the behind the scene footage of him on having an emotional rampage with these foam blocks is heartbreaking. If anybody out there has the Beowulf DVD, go to those behind the scenes.
You can watch the whole thing picture in picture on the Blu-ray. They have an option where you can watch the whole movie. Wow. I only found this out afterwards. I'm gonna fucking buy the Blu-ray now.
Nuts.
It costs like $6, but you can watch the whole movie picture in picture. And the one exception is the Jolie scenes because she blocked that footage.
Sure, good for her.
Well, because she was like mad at this movie. It felt like, but like all the actors, and Tom Hanks sort of says this too about Polar Express. They like, you know, compare it to like Theater in the Round or like Brecht or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, because they're like, unlike a movie where you shoot a quarter of a page a fucking day or whatever, you just kind of do it in a week, like, right? You do it really, really fast because they can just do everything else around you. And you're in this empty space.
And you don't have to keep stopping and starting. Right. You don't have to fucking like find your light or like play to the lens. Like a big breakthrough with this technology is that like you just capture the performance and then Zemeckis can pick the camera angles later. So you're just focusing on the acting and then he deals with all the other shit. So all these actors sign up because they're like, this sounds weird and freeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's great until you look at the final product and they all look terrible. I mean, that's the only negative is that it's a bad film. I mean, who's to say, right? I mean, and listen, in X amount of years, there's going to be a nostalgia factor for this look too. I mean, it's like us watching a B movie from the 50s where you can see the strings on Gamera and it's cute, you know? So people are going to look at John Malkovich's dead eyes and chuckle over it. You know, right now we're still close enough to it where it makes us gross.
Book reports from years to come. This is going to be it. This is going to be the text, honestly, truly.
So the book reports will be like, it's so great how Beowulf fights Grendel naked. And he's just going to be like, he watched the fucking movie. Like,
I just find it so funny that like most times that a classic is adapted into a Hollywood film, they just cut a bunch of the weird shit out. And so like, the mistake a kid like me who watched the movie and didn't read the book would make in my report is like you leave out large swaths of scenes that were cut out of the film, or you saw the one with the happy ending. And this is like, no, they put in all this weird shit. Bring.
Hello. Sorry. Click. Hello.
Oh, hello there. Hey, how's it going?
Well, hello. How are you doing? You seem like a nice guy.
Thanks for asking. I got these next door neighbors, these young hooligans who won't stop throwing a party every night's a hootenanny in the middle of a pandemic, no less. These kids and the music and
Okay, so you're sort of a like straight out a bye birdie. You're mad at everyone. Okay, well, what's your name or where do you live? Try and give me a little more information here.
Sure. My name is Clyde Grumpenstein. I live in Murray Hill.
Okay, sure. New York, fine. Yeah.
Look, I'll just be straight with you. I've been calling every single phone number I can find. I've been Zoom bombing everything I can, looking for help here.
Okay.
I need a Grendel. I need a Grendel to come in and just break up their party. And I don't know where to find a Grendel. I told Joe Rogan was no help to me.
Good. No, that
411
guy's
was no help to me.
No.
I'm just saying. I've been trying everything.
Right. It's tough out there. You've reached blank check. Luckily, I have the answer for you. You're looking for a Grendel, essentially a sort of big scary monster who can break up a party. I get it.
Hates noise, functions like a total narc. Yeah.
So what you're going to need to do, I think, since there are no mystical caves around here that you can summon a monster from, you should just go to Indeed, the #1 job site in the world. Yes. Yeah, they've got more total visits than any other job site, according to ComScore, and they can find you a real quality candidate quickly. They give you full control and payment flexibility. You only pay for what you need. You can pause your account whenever. There's no long-term contracts. And they've got a new way of matching you with candidates instantly. So they'll give you a short list where the resumes match your criteria, and you can contract them the moment that you sponsor a job. It's the only site that moves as fast as you do. So I'm just saying, like, you can put out a Grendel call and you're going to get a short list back right away of some really good Grendels.
I move really fast. I mean, you said they move as fast as you do, but I was an Olympic level runner.
Right. You're a clearly fascinating figure. Back to the podcast,
Oh,
but
sure. What movie are you covering?
Beowulf. We're talking about Beowulf. It's a hilarious coincidence.
It's very funny. I'm sorry. What were you saying, though? You had some other wisdom you want to impart to me?
Nothing, just that 73% of all online job seekers in the U.S. visit Indeed each month. Okay, so they're going to get you a quality hire. All the Grendels, they're checking Indeed. And right now, Indeed is offering our listeners a free $75 credit to boost your job post, which means more quality candidates will see it fast.
That's unbelievable. You talk about fast. I need to hang up on this Zoom call fast so I can start hiring the Grendel.
Well, let me just finish this little call to action over here. You can try out Indeed with a free $75 credit at Indeed.com/check. This is their best offer available anywhere. Go right now to Indeed.com/check. Offer valid through December 31st. Terms and conditions apply.
But I feel like this was a big, I don't want to get into this too much, but Steve Bing, who is this very, very weird millionaire
we can't
figure
get into
who,
Steve Bing. It's a whole episode. It's so fucking insane.
I'll let people go down their fucking rabbit hole, but just to say very quickly, he inherited $600 million from his grandfather, who was like a real estate mogul, and then was like, I'm going to be like the fucking Howard Hughes of the film industry. And he started this company, Shangri-La Films, and his first big investment was he put up $90 million of Polar Express's budget. No one wanted to make Polar Express. No one wanted to give him the money he wanted. So Bing independently put up more than half of the budget. And people were like, you're insane. You're going to lose your entire fortune. And then Polar Express was so huge. So he felt vindicated, and he kind of never had a hit movie ever again. But he immediately afterwards was like, Bobby, let's do it again. Let's fucking do it. Let's do another one. What scripts do you want to do? And Zemeckis was like, there was this Beowulf script from years ago that I was going to produce. He's like, sounds good. I'll buy it. $2 million. Like, paid Avary and Gaiman $2 million after they had already been paid previously and had their rights lapse. But I think a big part of it was, and it was independently financed, and then they sold it to Paramount. Columbia thought they had this movie on a handshake deal for years, and then he was like, never mind, Paramount offered more money. But this is pretty much Bing bankrolled, and I think the big thing was Zemeckis was like, I want to prove, because I'm so committed to making mocap movies forever, that these aren't animated films and they're not for kids. Like, I want to do the one that's an action film, that's intense, that's bloody and sexual, because I want to move this shit out of the cartoon ghetto. And it's interesting that even though this movie was kind of a flop, it was like, I feel, the most successful attempt at adult animation, like pure adult
in
animation.
America with this kind of budget, for sure. Yeah, 100%.
And no one tried it ever again. Like it's an absolute dead end.
It's as dead as Malkovich's eyes in this film. Yeah, it's a fascinating film. It's a sui generis thing. There's nothing else quite like Zemeckis' Beowulf, and and a lot of it is
after this he goes back to Christmas. He's just like, fuck it, I'll do Scrooge.
It's a weird cul-de-sac, and another aspect that I think I just alluded to it a moment ago. One of the things I really, really am moved by emotionally is Crispin Glover's performance as the world's most upset neighbor at the rowdy party next door, Grendel, who can't handle it that there's fun at the beer hall, at the mead hall, and he wasn't invited, and murmuring in Old English, and his mother has a Russian accent for some reason. And he's so upsetting in this film. He's really, I don't know, how would you describe his performance? Is it sadness? Is it what is he doing?
It's got a QAnon kind of vibe to it.
It's sort of 4chan-y, 8chan adjacent.
Yeah, edgelord kind of vibe.
But I also think it's telling that it's like his performance holds up the best, no question.
Yes. Yeah.
And his character overall holds up the best because it's the one that is like leaning into abstraction.
Yeah, he
not
looks like
trying
a
to represent the real world, because that's the other totally like quixotic aspect of this mocap era for Zemeckis is his like sort of like slavish devotion to, I want them to look like the movie stars, like there's something about like the corner turned where you're like, Josh Brolin is Thanos and everyone just knows it's Brolin, and we maybe try to make his eyes look a little bit like Josh Brolin, but you let him look like some other fucking thing.
Right, but it's not too difficult. Right, yeah. I mean, look, I think it's partly just getting the tech there too. Like, it's not just that I want Tom Hanks to look like Tom Hanks. I want to see if we can make it look like Tom Hanks, right? Like, there's a challenge in it too.
Totally. So much of this is R&D, but there's that uncanny valley that's harder to cross when you're like, I know what fucking Malkovich looks like.
Right.
Whereas with Grendel, you can spend more time thinking about what Glover is contributing, and in a weird way you see his performance more clearly because you're not hung up on like, that's not quite what his cheekbones look like. Similarly, I think Windstone holds up the second best because it's also like its own weird model. It's its own visual creation.
Right. It's a good point. Yeah, the monsters and Windstone, because he's not a real human. He's a fake human, and a composite character.
They're louder, bombastic performances built on actual just cartoon models that people can puppeteer, and it makes you wonder if this movie would age better if they were just like, let's stylize it more and not worry about looking like the people.
Yeah, like the close-ups on Grendel work, and they're the only close-ups on a face that work in this film. So I'll tell you a quick story about Crispin Glover in this movie. Now, I mentioned earlier that when 300 came out in March of 2007, I was working as a New York City tour guide. And then I left that job. And by the time this movie came out, I had a new position. I was working in a very weird roundabout way. I ended up working at a website that doesn't exist anymore called UGO.com.
UGO, I remember.
And UGO was the Pepsi to IGN's Coke, right? They were around for a long time, and they were competitors. That's the second time I've used that analogy tonight. I use that one a lot.
You got to go for 5.
5 more times. I try to use it. Okay, I'll try to. Okay, so
5 in total.
Yeah, or 5 Alive is like the 5 Alive to Minute Maid. I could do that.
Oh boy!
All right, keep going, going, Jordan. Keep going.
All right, so. Yeah. So dig this. I'm at this new job, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I just started, and they're promoting Beowulf, right? And I had done a few interviews with celebrities before for this job, but nobody too big, I think literally one of them was Pee Wee Herman. So Paul Rubens.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, great guy.
Rules.
Now I do interviews 3 times a week, but back then I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I get I'm doing a phone call interview with Crispin Glover, right? And I'm trying to, he's Crispin Glover. He's a little weird, right? He's had some issues over his career, his life. He flipped out on the Letterman show.
He's been known to kick himself in the head during interviews. I mean, you're in a dangerous position. Right.
I've been nervous having the conversation with him. So like, he gets on the phone. Hello. I can't do his voice. He's like, hello, I'm Crispin Glover. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? Yeah, just want to say I'm a big fan of your work, blah, blah, blah. I try to butter him up a little bit. I'm like, now that Crispin Glover has directed a handful of films. I don't know if
I've seen at least one of them.
Okay, so one of them, and I forget the name right now.
Is This It? Is that the one?
That's the biggie. Is This It? And then there's another one.
That's the one I've seen.
There's one called It's Fine, Everyone is Fine, or something like that.
Right. I maybe have seen both.
So I said to him once, "Oh, I'm a fan of your work, and I've seen your films." And he's like, "Oh yeah, where did you see it?" I'm like, "Oh, I live here in New York." And he goes, "Yeah, which theater did you see it at?" So here's the deal. When these movies came out, I knew, over the course of my life, I've known some people in the film industry, and like I know you, everybody listening. So as it happens, I knew a guy. I haven't talked to him in years. He got everything. He got Phantom Menace on a tape 3 days after it came out, and I don't mean like Kramer style, somewhere with a camera. Yeah, he somehow had it. And I didn't want to watch it because I hadn't seen Phantom Menace yet. I'm like, no, I'm going in the kitchen. I don't want to see this. So this dude, Mystery Man X, had this screwy Crispin Glover movie, and we watched it. We had a few glasses of mead, so I was a little heavy, but we watched it. And the thing is, when Glover shows these films, he does like a live performance. He travels with the films. He does slideshow projection. There's like
2 feature films. It's what is it? And This Is Fine, Everything is Fine. Is it fine? Everything is fine. And he's got like one print of each film, and he brings them city to city and hosts them and reads poetry. It's very much a one-man show.
Yeah. Yes. Now I didn't see that, so I saw a tape. So I'm like, I'm like an idiot, like a freaking idiot. This was 13 years ago, so I absolved myself. And I was new at the job that I had no business being at. Now I'm a professional. Again, I write for very esteemed publications. At the time, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I'm like, I saw it at a friend's house. He goes, what? It's Crispin Glover, Grendel, in this film. He's so good. He's so good as Grendel. I said, I saw my buddy, he had a tape. What is this person's name? I'm like, I'm like, it's just some guy that I know. So let's talk about the film. He's like, I need to know this name because I am in conversation with the FBI. And the FBI and I speak, and we need to stop these tapes circulating. So this guy's in the industry. I mean, he's not like a big producer, but he was involved in the production of some very high level.
He directed the motion picture Avatar. Look, we can't say his name, but
he's nobody anybody's heard of, but he's made some stuff, mostly TV commercials. But like what he did was he did TV commercials with big directors. He produced a bunch of TV commercials that never went
Jordan,
on the air.
stop leaving breadcrumbs.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Bleep that out.
I'm like, all right, I'm like, I can't remember his name. I was at a party, and it was on, and he will not let it go. He will not let it go. I'm like, all right, I really want to talk about your performance I'm sweating now. I'm flop sweating. I'm like a mess because I'm new at this job. I'm like, I really want to talk about your performance as Grendel. It's so vivid. It's so, he's like, no, we must talk about this. I need to know this name. Will you email me this name? I have to know right now. And he starts screaming at me like it's not fun. He's fucking livid. And I just say, I really don't remember his name. It was a friend of a friend. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I recognize now that this is taking money out of your pocket.
Because he never released these movies on home video. They've never been available on streaming. The only way to see them is the screenings that he himself organizes and is in person for. So when he asked you, what theater did you see it at? He probably could have asked which showtime as a follow-up, and he would have remembered vividly. Like these films, he makes Hollywood films in order to finance these movies. It took a decade for each one, and he's like slowly making back millions of dollars, one 4-walled screening at a time.
So I feel bad. So he thinks that I'm looking at a cam, but I don't know what the hell. I don't remember. Like I said, I was drinking a lot of mead that night. Who remembers? All I know is that The interview does not go well.
Doesn't
Okay,
sound like it went well.
It does not go well. We didn't run anything, and I had to go and tell my new boss what just happened. So I'm like, we got to go into a room. I'm like, you know how I told you that on Friday we were gonna publish an interview with Crispin Glover? Well, it's not happening. Why? Because he just screamed at me about this thing.
It became an FBI investigation.
Luckily, my boss thought it was hilarious.
Right.
And we considered running the freak out. And then we're like, you know what? That's a little much. Let's not run the freak out. Let's just pretend it never happened.
Right.
So that's my one encounter with Crispin Glover, who is certainly very dedicated to his craft.
He Grendelled. He went
Grendelled
Grendel. Yeah.
I was
He went full
Hrothgar.
Grendel.
I was a quivering Hrothgar, and I needed a Beowulf to come in and save me.
I had several different people feed me similar scoops in anticipation of this episode. Once our Back to the Future episodes had come out, and we obviously spent arguably too much time talking about the Glover Zemeckis Gale divide. Because it was kind of a big story that Glover was going to be in this movie,
Right.
especially after he had been involved in this big lawsuit with Zemeckis and Gale. And the thing I heard mirrored by many people is that the root of the sort of Glover fallout from Back to the Future is just that Robert Zemeckis is obviously a perfectionist and a very controlling, detail-obsessed filmmaker, and Crispin Glover is on his own wavelength and never wants to do the same thing twice. So with these very complicated Zemeckis shot setups, he could never get continuity right, and it drove him crazy, and he didn't want to deal with him, so he would send Gale to be the bad cop, which means that Glover always resented Gale more than Zemeckis. So it was when they got to this movie and Zemeckis went like, well, we're still kind of on good terms, all considering. And also, if it's in motion capture, none of my problems with Glover apply anymore.
Right. I can use whatever I want.
Right. I just need him acting. Put up a bunch of foam things. There don't even need to be other actors on set. Like this guy, you could just wind him up and he'll start crying and knocking down walls. And we'll just have the raw data and I can make my shot choices later. And the performance is kind of a revelation in that way. Like you're just like, man, this is just raw feed Glover. And like, the last time you feel like he really got a showcase like this, so just go for it.
Yeah. I would imagine, what do you, when Zemeckis had the idea to bring Glover back, there had to have been someone in his circle being like, are you nuts? Like how, after all the trouble this guy's brought you and just the state of him in general, like somebody would have had to said, do you really want to do that?
So.
Because
but like when I went to that screening of his 2 movies with poetry in between, and he talked about that, like he thinks the film industry is morally bankrupt, but he has to make studio films in order to slowly amount the budget for his next movie. Like that's his whole process.
Sure.
So I think you offer him enough money, he'll do almost anything because he's like, this is money laundering for me to make my real art. And secondly, I think Zemeckis was able to say to them, like, no other actors on set, we can get all of his shit done in a day. Like it's so low risk to us.
Right. But also like somebody would have said, like, could other people have done this role? I mean, sure, but he's really good, right? I mean,
he's really good. He's the right choice, right? Like inarguably. It's cool. It just kind of warms my heart that Zemeckis, the CGI techno nerd, finds a way to kind of offer an olive branch to Crispin Glover through this ridiculous technology. You know what I mean? He's like, I found a way for us to work together that where we're not going to get on each other's nerves, and you'll make a
It's very sweet.
good performance. And yeah, exactly.
And also, like, I recognize your skill. Like, we had our fucking problems, but no one can deny he's great in Back to the Future, and he is like the best choice for this. And
he's very compelling.
He's very compelling, and all that vulnerability. I mean, I don't think any other actor would have brought this level of empathy to the character.
No, it would have been just another CGI monster. Like, it would have been nothing.
Yes, I would say, I enjoyed the movie Beowulf. I enjoy all of its nonsense. But I would say the first chunk, the Grendel chunk, is the best chunk.
Yes.
Would you agree? Like,
hardcore.
It does have the most mead chugging and horny Hrothgar. I get you kind of have to get past that. But just like, Grendel is just frightening and unpredictable in a way that the dragon isn't later, right? Like the Jolie scene is much hyped, but it's very short. Like it's actually not,
This is the problem. This is a big problem with the movie, is that it is lopsided. The coolest stuff happens in the first 20 minutes. And then, the big ending is cool, but the big ending is not as good as the beginning.
And also, there's this really fascinating sort of like study in contrast where the movie is so maximalist from the beginning, right? It starts with Alan Silvestri just fucking shredding, right?
He's shredding.
And all these logos like fucking slamming you in the face and fire. And then you go to the mead hall and it's just like cacophony of noise, of dancing, of violence, of leering. Like a lot of the shit.
They wake up Grendel. They hurt his little ears.
Right. But they give you like 8 straight minutes of just debauchery, of just fucking like, Animal House shit.
It's like Emir Costa Rica's 3D computer generated film. It's like underground, but in Thanes and Danes. It's great.
I think the majority of the added footage for the unrated cut is just in this opening. Like they add in like a lot more groping and shit. But it's just so loud. It's so noisy. He's doing all these wild camera moves. You also can tell he's getting off on like, oh, I don't have to actually light this thing. I can make it be lit by candlelight without having to do like these insane Barry Lyndon sort of like jumping jacks and backflips to figure out how to make this work with new lenses. You can just make something look really dank and murky. And it's fine. It's animation. You're in control of it. And he's got the camera up in the rafters.
He also doesn't really bother to like give you much geography of the mead hall. It's just a big rectangle, and in the back there's bedrooms, but like you don't really know where.
Well, this is the other really fascinating thing about the opening of the movie is for how much it's like bombarding you with shit. It's also kind of a chamber piece. Like the first half of the movie mostly takes place in the mead hall.
Yeah.
You very rarely leave the mead hall. And there's something kind of nice of like, oh, in a way this could be a play. The action is so largely centered. Yeah. They're almost so just much two of the poem. Sets.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And the poem is really like that too. It's a lot of like, let's explain how this works. Everyone comes to the mead hall. We all drink. We all sing songs. This is who this is. This is who, it's a lot of that. It's just a lot of like, when the world is so dark and cold and there's fucking nothing out there, right? Yeah. Like, what are you going to live on some snowy mountain starving to death? No, everyone should just be together in one big room eating meat. Like, here's the question I had. What job do you want in this time? This is Forky and I were discussing this because you don't want to be fucking fighting because then you're gonna die. You don't want to row a boat. That's hard, right? Like, what's a job where you can kind of keep to yourself, stick to the mead hall?
Oh, I know the answer.
Okay.
The answer is you want to be somehow involved in mead production.
Oh,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody will love
be the
you.
Mead man.
Yeah, you want to be the mead man. You want to Meadsmith. Either the making of it or the bottling of it or the delivery.
This was it's like you need to have a skill that is not easily like blacksmiths, like but blacksmith that's a lot of work.
I would make metal music. Like I would be in a metal band. That's what I would do.
You'd be like a chain singer, right?
Yeah.
Had court jesters gone out of fashion at this point in time? Would there be an angle for me to work there?
There is, but here's my only concern about being an entertainer, right? Being a singer or a fool or whatever. You're really at the whim of a drunk guy. Like he might be, you just one false move and he's like, fucking kill that guy. I'm sick of him.
Right. You don't get to bomb twice. You got one bad show in you.
Like tough crowd.
Yeah, tough crowd.
That's why I was like, if you're a blacksmith, it's like, there's not like the world is not lousy with blacksmiths, I would assume, right?
And also you're just doing the same crowd. You're performing for the same crowd over and over again. You just got to constantly be generating new material.
Tough.
No opener. Like you got to warm the crowd up yourself, then get to your A-level shit.
Right. And then they could be like, you were better last week with the same song.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. David.
Yes.
I want to talk about Ed.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, see, I see your eyes are lighting up. You think I'm talking about the early 2000s Tom Cavanaugh starring NBC light dramedy Ed.
Yeah, sure. Right. You had Daryl Mitchell. You had who
Julie
else was in that
Bowen.
show? Julie Bowen.
You had Mike Starr.
You had, I think Letterman might have produced that one. Michael Ian Black was on that, right? Justin Long.
Yes. But David, I'm not here to talk about that.
Okay.
And I'm realizing I led you astray by saying I want to talk about Ed. I should have said I want to talk about ED.
Okay. You're talking, right. That's a different thing.
Erectile dysfunction. That's what I want to talk about is erectile dysfunction.
Look, it's an issue guys dread.
Yes.
Many people experience it. It's very difficult. It could be, so a lot of people just think of it as an issue for all guys, but by age 40, 40% of men struggle with ED. You're not alone. HIMS is going to connect you with licensed medical professionals online and see if prescription treatment is right for you. That's right. Our friends at HIMS can get you medication to treat ED. It's real science and real solutions. That's very easy to deal with.
And as you said, like this is an issue that affects young people too. 40 is the new 15. You don't need medication to help you deal with Ed. It's a delightful show. It's a light watch. It's unavailable from streaming, but you can probably find it through a legal means. But it is worth getting help for ED. And getting help doesn't have to be embarrassing any longer.
No, 100%. And look, HIMS is going to make it easy. They connect you with a licensed medical professional, okay? You get the same active ingredient as that expensive little pill without the expensive price tag. It could cost you hundreds of bucks if you went through a doctor or pharmacy. Not so with HIMS. There's no expensive appointments. There's no embarrassing conversations. You answer a few questions online about your medical history. A provider confidentially reviews. And if approved, it's shipped right to your door in discreet packaging and shipping is free. Okay, that's it. You just have to click some stuff on a website. It's nothing crazy, and you can get help.
Guess how many episodes there were of Ed in total?
I'm going to guess 65.
83.
Wow. All right. Good for Ed.
Almost at the magic number. Good for Ed and bad for ED because HIMS is ready to solve it.
Right. Okay. So listen, you can try HIMS today by starting out with a free online visit. Go to forhims.com/blank for your free visit. That's forhims.com/blank, FORHIMS.com/blank. Now, the prescription products are subject to medical provider approval and require an online consultation with the medical provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. See website for full details and safety information. And remember, that is forhims.com/blank.
All right, so the plot of Beowulf, which we've been sort of going through, it was Grendel attacks, and he doesn't attack Hrothgar.
Can I say my favorite moment in the entire movie, what I think is the high point of the entire film?
Yes.
So like cacophony, debauchery, tits, blood, right? Then you're up in the rafters and the cross beams. You land on, what is it, that bird that takes the rat? You have the rat stealing the meat, and then there's sort of the bird that grabs the rat, and then you follow the bird out of the mead hall. And the further you get as you like fly, you're like tracking backwards in the sky.
It's
with
the contact
bird.
shot. It's the same shot as
contact shot.
Yeah.
It's the contact shot, which like most Zemeckis movies start with the really long tracking shot where he sets up like the environment and gives you the story details. Contact does that with zooming out and letting you know this film takes place in the universe. This movie starts in the tight place, lots of fast cuts, all this sort of shit. And then this is like the big sort of like establishing shot where you just go further and further back and you get further away from the noise until all that cacophony is just so distant. But also, as you said, David, you're underlining the fact where it's like, this is just this one fucking castle in the middle of snowy nowhere. Like this has felt so exciting and vital. And now you're just like, man, this world sucks. There's like nothing here. And you keep on pulling further and further and further back until it's like silent, like pin drop silent. And if you feel like it's eerie, like why has he deflated the balloon this much? And then you finally land back in the cave with Grendel, who is just screaming in agony because the noise is too loud for him. And that's like the whole movie just perfectly encapsulated, like everything he wants to do here told entirely visually. And it sets up like, we get it. Like here's Grendel as a sympathetic character. As you said, he's the neighbor who like these fucking kids won't stop partying. It's such an amazing reframing of him.
Right. But I mean, he's very he's very mutable. Like you could do so much with Grendel, even in the poem, right? Like, yeah, he's the outcast. He's like our sins. I mean, like the Christian retelling, right? He's kind of like, he's rejected God or whatever, like that's why Grendel rules, and Grendel's mother. I mean, Grendel's mother is it's just a great concept for a monster. Like that's why it's always such a bummer. I always forget the Beowulf ends with a dragon. I have no beef with dragons, to be clear, but dragons are fine.
Dragons fucking rule, David. How dare you?
All right, fine. Maybe I should be more pro dragon. It's just like I've seen a dragon. I've never seen a Grendel.
Have you seen a dragon, really, though?
Yeah, he told us. He grew up in England.
Yeah, right. They're lousy.
There be dragons. It's a kingdom over there.
Yes. So Grendel comes, he smashes. There's the blue flame. That's very cool. He like comes in and out of the blue flame.
Yeah.
And the way he triangulates the ripping of his arm off by using the poles and the chain and the wheel. It's very, very, very athletic.
This movie is so violent.
It's very violent. And there's so much nudity. His wang, you never see his wang, but it's blocked in
the Austin Powers fight. He does a full Austin Powers
fight. So Beowulf shows up. He tells you who he is. He talks about how he beat a guy in a big race, all that stuff. But he's like, I'll take down your guy and I'll do it naked because that's a fair fight, I guess.
It's
like
a gentleman's,
that's the concept.
We're even. Yeah.
Can we talk about the race though? Because, and I don't know if it's in the poem, he loses the race.
The race is in the poem.
He loses the race because he gets the hots for a mermaid. And this is the recurring theme in this very not woke movie. Like
he's horny.
Like women will ruin you in this movie.
His dick keeps getting him into trouble. He should never trust a dame.
His dick gets all dicks get into trouble. All dogs go to heaven, and all dicks get in trouble. Yeah, it's like this movie is just like he's like very anti-woman. I think there's no twist at the end where the woman helps save the day.
I mean, you have 4 female characters. One of them is defined by her giant pendulous breasts.
I mean, Beowulf the Poem is not giving you a ton to work with.
No, but I'm just saying, to be a little, I mean, if I may, and I'm sure we all agree because we're all very progressive men on this show, I think that if you're going to make adjustments to the script, as they did make tremendous adjustments, somebody at some point should have said, hey, guys, all women do here are either evil witches or they're there to screw. There's the wife.
This is true.
There's the mistress, and the wife and the mistress are cool with each other.
Alison
Lohman. That's the failing of the movie from that angle.
There could have been a twist, at least a little something, a little nod at the end where Robin Wright or Alison Lohman could have at least thrown a rock at the friggin' dragon to help out instead of just cowering and then being saved. And then the last line is, attend the bride, attend the queen. It's not
all the having sex with the witch stuff is not good either.
Well, I mean, at least she's active.
She's active.
Right. Yes. It's like and Angelina Jolie, as we said we would mention, she was told she said she was told she'd look like a lizard, right? Like that she would have like some kind of reptilian form.
Which she has
what
for a
you
second.
see in the reflection.
Right. And literally she filmed this over 2 days. Like it's not like she gave a ton of her time to this movie. And then she sees the movie and she's like, I'm just naked. That's like, I just look like Angelina Jolie and I'm naked. That's what you came up with for me. So clearly she pretty much expressed her unhappiness, right?
Yes. Like, she said that was
she
not.
She said she felt exposed.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And this is the other thing I want to bring up. Much like Alan Richson being sort of the secret physical model, they hired a supermodel to be the body double, who I think they scanned physically and modeled. I mean, it's Jolie's performance, but they digitally rendered this other woman's presumably naked or scantily clad body.
I just thought they used Frank Frazetta paintings. I mean, it just looks, just remarkable.
It's ludicrous.
I mean, I will say, as I said, in late 2007, I was working at this digital media company and able to track the metrics. Our gallery of pictures of Angelina Jolie from Beowulf was like our #1 story for a month. So,
I mean, I remember the audience being pin drop silent a Friday night opening IMAX screening, and it felt like, once again, this sort of like the edginess of this movie trying to be like, look, it's not for kids. It's not for kids. It feels like that is still her rising out of the water is still the single most photorealistic shot in the movie. And it feels like they put so much energy into that because he was like, people have to get horny when they see this. I'm trying to prove a point here. This isn't a fucking tune. They have to get boners when they see her pop out of the water.
It's so funny because Brendan Gleeson looks like shit in this movie, but she looks so amazingly good. They really put a lot of attention into her. They really did.
To support the Jolie sentiment, I'm going to send you guys the link, a microscopic merchandise spotlight. The action figure of Grendel's mother is the lizard form. They made an action figure that was sold in stores that looks like the lizard form that you never see fully in the movie. So I fully believe they intended, they weren't just lying to her, that at some late point they decided to go full cheesecake TNA.
That's wrong. I mean, I feel like Jolie could have sued, right? But you're not going to sue Zemeckis. I mean, but she was exploited. If she went, at what point did they tell her? Did they tell her opening night, or did they? I mean,
she says she went to the movie and was like, "I did not know this is what it was."
Then that's
when
totally
she saw it for the first time.
And I'm not.
I don't know if it was the premiere or an early screening, but she said like she saw it and did not know that's what it was going to look like.
I'm going to say that's fucked up. I'm going to say that's I do not approve, and that is not righteous.
Yeah, it's like what you say, Ben. It's like the weird moral of like she seduces him, but like I get, again, if you read Beowulf, you're trying to find some tension, you're trying to find like flaws in the hero, and so Grendel's mother's sort of mysterious aspect, like that, it makes sense. It's like, there has to be more going on with this woman, right? Like, but like, this is the thing about Beowulf, where I'm like, I kind of like how berserk it is and how silly and how like swing for the and like how high energy, but also at the same, I can't deny like it's kind of fucking like stupid as shit, like dumb as a bunch of fucking rocks.
How is this the original story? How have we continued to propagate the sleazy little king's assistant? How is that still a thing? That character sucks. I always hate that character.
You always hate that guy who's like,
I hate that guy.
Sir.
I always know that guy sucks. It's never tricked me.
All right, well, what about the trusty friend of your hero character who is arguably more honorable and reliable than the guy himself? Well, that's a good character.
If he has a beard braid and he's what's the actor's name? Brendan Gleeson. If he's Brendan Gleeson, he's got a beard braid, then I feel good about it.
But then how does the movie end? Oh, now his dick's going to get him into trouble too. These damn dicks getting us all into trouble.
Resisting.
The last shot. This movie has a great last shot because you don't know.
It does.
This movie's good. Beowulf is good.
This movie is good.
I can't get over it. Beowulf, it looks like shit. It hurts your eyes to watch. It's such garbage, but it's a good movie. I don't understand.
It's good by a hair. It's like it defies logic. It's somehow, and you're like, it's disqualified, right? It's automatically disqualified.
It's not a real
judges
movie.
Come in and they're like, I don't know what to tell you. It got a bronze medal. Somehow, it got a bronze.
Right.
They're like, but I saw it. They didn't finish.
Right. They fell. I watched them fall. They fell into the fucking lake. It was like, yeah, I know, but
they never even got on the balance
good.
beam. They stayed in the locker room.
The last shot of this movie is really smart. You think at first, just to fast forward, so Angelina Jolie, she's the sex witch. She's Eve. She's all these.
Right. He goes to kill her. And she essentially seduces him and promises him power in exchange for not killing her. Yeah,
and they fuck, right?
Oh, they fuck.
Okay.
With Hrunting. Hey, by the way, you mentioned Unferth, this the Grima Wormtongue, the evil kind of swarmy guy.
Yes, Malkovich. Yeah.
Malkovich gives Beowulf his sword, Hrunting, and it's like Hrunting will help you, and then Hrunting is no good as a sword. It can't defeat. And in the book or in the poem, he finds another sword that works. They left that sword out, and the horn is not in the story either. That's made up for the movie. But my point is, scholars for 1,000 years have been arguing, was Unferth's bestowal of Hrunting meant in good faith or in bad faith. And the movie does not answer the question because Malkovich is a good actor. You wouldn't know it because he looks like a PS2 cutscene, but he's doing good things, and it's ambiguous.
But the implication is he used that sword to kill his siblings, right? So there's also this cursed
and he
aspect.
also laid with his mother and whatnot. It's a whole.
He
thing.
also got 4 stars in Grand Theft Auto, so
this
it's like
fucking
hard to
guy.
tell really what's going on. Yeah,
Right. He didn't go full platinum, but he got a gold trophy. He got a bunch of the gold trophies.
Right. He has defeated the Rainbow Road. That is true.
But they're laying in this sort of unreliable narrator aspect of Beowulf where like he only manages to sever Grendel's arm in the door and then immediately goes like, I killed him. Everyone celebrates him, and then he's like, I gotta do due diligence, go to the cave, kind of make sure this dude's dead.
Right. You're talking about Malkovich now. Yeah.
Right. Yes, right.
Yeah. But so what's fascinating to me is, well, first of all, the sword is named Hrunting. I mean, that just gets me hard right there. I mean, so Hrunting, is it the best sword? Is it the worst? Like, did Ulfgar, or whatever his name is, Malkovich, did he send him off with a defective sword on purpose to try to get him killed? Or was he on the level? He's like, you are now my new god. I love you. Here's my best sword. And we'll never know. And the movie leans into this, and it's like that, and the last shot of Gleason is like, there are these ambiguous things in this film that on one side you would think is just made for the 300 crowd. There's not a lot of subtlety in 300. 300 does not lend itself to discussion. Whereas this, you actually don't know.
I like hunting sounds like a deep, like 5th page deli menu item.
Oh yeah, you don't want stuffed derma here. You want the Hrunting.
You want the hunter with a side of kasha.
Yeah. The Hrunting is good. I like it with horseradish.
Yeah.
So the implication is, it's not the implication, we know. It's like he gets, in the poem, Beowulf grows old and eventually kills the dragon, and that's what kills him. And that's it. There's no implication of where the dragon came from or anything like that. He just gets old.
Yeah.
But in this, he gets old because he lays with Grendel's mother.
Yeah.
And she eventually gives birth to a dragon who's really a golden man who looks like Ray Winstone and is essentially like his sin coming to like claim his life, right?
Yeah, and Grendel is Hrothgar's son.
Yes, correct. Hrothgar, right. Grendel being Hrothgar's version of that, yes.
I mean, here's my thing. I kind of agree with you guys where I'm just like, in theory, dragons are cool, but I never actually get that excited about a dragon. And it just feels a little deflated, especially because Grendel and Grendel's mother have so much personality that the second it becomes a dragon, I'm just kind of like, well, now it's just going to be a big fighty.
Yeah,
thing.
I feel like they could have done it. I mean, dragons are great. I dig a dragon, but like it could have been a Nazgul or something, right? Or a ring wraith, or it could have been a weirder winged beast.
It's very hard to map emotion onto this dragon.
Yeah.
It looks cool, but it kind of deflates the emotional stakes of this is Beowulf fighting his son because it's so inhuman.
But then again, he flies around and they're on it, and it's bright kind of yellowish orange against the white, the
gold.
gray.
They're all gold.
Gray, gold, yeah. And the snow and the gray and the snow, and it looks nice. But
it looks good.
But
all this stuff looks good. And Zemeckis having fun doing this like giant fight that he could never pull off.
Yeah, but it is compared to the other two antagonists, it is it's the bronze medal. To go back.
It's also telling that like when Zemeckis came in with his rewrite note to Avary and Gaiman and said like make it as big as you possibly can, this was the main thing that was changed because in the script, thinking they were going to make a $20 million movie, it was supposed to be a conversation. They had a long conversation, and then there was like one final killing stroke. And they were like, make it the most fucking knockout, drag out. He's got him in his talons. He's flying him around the ocean sort of fight. And it does feel a little perfunctory in that way. It's just scale and scope for the sake of it.
Yeah. It's weird. But and also it's like at this point, you've been watching this CG for so long, you're kind of exhausted.
A little bit. Yeah.
If the movie lasted another 10 minutes, it would have been like enough already. I can't take it.
The movie should be a tight 90. It's 2 hours long. The movie's too long. I think it would work better if it was really just like half an hour an act, all action, all pendulous boobs, all, nonsense, just total fucking heavy metal nonsense. Like it takes it spends a little too long on, I guess, chatting. Like I'm trying to think of where the sag is, but it's those sort of like where they're fighting in the mead hall and stuff. Like, I don't care.
I think definitely the 10 minutes after the time jump with like Winstone and Alison Lohman is just like the air letting out.
And there's the Frisian hordes are coming. I am Fife the Frisian, and like, could have cut that guy out. That was a Tom Bombadil waiting to happen. Let's get rid of that guy. I mean,
but it is one of those things where like the movie by the skin of its teeth, I guess, is good for all of its baggage, for all of its moral and ethical issues in the making of the film.
Thing. The movie it rules, except for all of the fatal errors, as you say.
Right,
like, it's basically it's a zero, but it also rules, I guess.
But it's also one of those things where you're like, if they did a remaster of this, shave 20 minutes off of it, 15 minutes off of it, and made it look less creepy, like pushed it into a more stylized realm, if it looked more painterly and less photorealistic with the advancements we have, you'd be like, yeah, that thing's like a hard 7.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a 7.5.
If you somehow were able to do this live action, now obviously you couldn't do all of these shots. The camera doing cartwheels is just through the roof, but literally. But if you somehow did it live action with the same script, it would be incredible. It would just be incredible.
Beowulf.
Yeah.
He could also. I need to know who he is. I was really confused.
He says I am Beowulf.
He could really remind
a lot, but there's one moment where he's eaten by a sea serpent, and he comes out through the eye of the sea serpent.
Yes. How can you be? Yes. And he goes like,
no, he doesn't even say I am Beowulf. He just says Beowulf. He just pronounces his name.
Beowulf.
I mean, if I'm ever eaten by a sea serpent and then I come out through the eye, I'll say my name.
How can I be mad at a movie where the thing you just described happens and Ray Winstone plays Beowulf?
That's the problem. Yeah, you kind of can't.
Ben, come on, Ben. You like the chains. This movie is Ben friendly in many ways, just in terms of the silliness, I would say.
Well, I mean, it's so close to homework.
It's close. I know, right. So that's just
it's trash, which I honestly love. Like I brought up before we started recording, this movie isn't the tradition, that would then lead to Warcraft, right? Another bad movie that I actually
grand oral
kind of
tradition.
Love. Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. We've passed down Beowulf, Warcraft, those stories.
Griff, should we do Warcraft as a Ben's choice?
I think we should. Because it's important, because it's going to lead to more movies. I mean, we can't.
They're going to keep making those. They're almost the inverse of each other, Ben, because Warcraft is like, here's this thing that everyone finds really fun. And Duncan Jones is like, okay, hold on 1 second. Stick with me here. I'm going to turn it into homework. And this movie is the opposite.
You need to know about all the factions.
Right. It takes like homework and is like, I'm going to make this so fucking punk rock and trashy. Like Zemeckis is trying so hard. Like, kids, come back here. Come on. Look, they're titties.
Yes, of course, right?
Drink your mead.
Would make it into my drink your mead. All these things would make it into my book report if I was using that as my source material.
Yeah.
To answer your question though, David, it's the visuals. You can't get past it. They're bad. They are so bad.
So bad.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a movie of extremes. On the one hand, the visuals are unbearable. And on the other hand, he jumps through a sea serpent's eyeball and says his own name.
You can't argue with that.
They're both extremes. I mean, how do you?
I don't know.
They wrestle within me.
It comes down to are you a pessimist or an optimist? I mean, ultimately, I gotta take the good. Otherwise, why get up in the morning? Not to get too heavy, man, but I gotta take jumping through the eyeball over the awful, truly repugnant and repulsive visuals of this film.
For me, the goblet of mead is half full.
Yeah, there you go. Me too. All right, let's play the box office game. This movie,
it was like Griff, almost a hit.
Almost a hit. Yeah. Well, it made 195 worldwide, which was probably just about enough to not ruin Steve Bing's investment or whatever. You know what I mean? But it made 82 domestic.
Not good.
Not great. Versus like Polar Express or whatever. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's okay.
It opened fairly well, right? It opened like high 20s.
27 on November 16th. Pretty good opening. Yeah, it drops off.
It falls off a
40%.
cliff eventually into the ocean.
Gets eaten by a sea serpent. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did fine. Let's talk about this box office though, Griffin. It's a weird one. So we're November 2007.
So this is my freshman year, my only full semester of college before I dropped out.
I have just graduated from college. Yes. So
in America, like normal kind of situation.
Yeah, like a normal person.
In Britain, that's where I went to college.
What? Oh my God.
I'm just calling my shot. This might be one of those top fives that I answer very quickly because this was such a foundational movie going period for me, because for the first time in my life I needed people to drive me to the movie theater.
Because you're in California, right?
I was in California, I was in college. I am afraid of cars. So I was very strategic about theater going, but had my tabs on everything.
And this is when I worked for People magazine as a plucky young intern, and I did a lot of red carpet, and I covered the red carpets of 2 of these 5 in the top 5. Ooh. So number 1 is Beowulf. Number 2, it's in its 3rd week. It's made $93 million. It's an animated film. And yes, I covered the red carpet.
Is it B-movie?
B-movie!
Jesus. Yep.
Honey just got funny.
Yep. I'm telling you, I remember this vividly. And now that you gave me the red carpet hint, I believe I know what one of the other 5 is.
Fair enough. But yeah, so B-movie, Jerry Seinfeld. I got to talk to Jerry Seinfeld on the red carpet, and Renee Zellweger. That's what
Ray
I remember.
Liotta, Private Select.
B-movie.
B-movie.
Rock is in that one. I don't think he came to London for the premiere.
No.
Who else is in that?
You ask me, more of a C movie.
Oh, wow. Have you seen B-movie?
I actually never have.
No, I've seen segments of B-movie. I've never been able to watch the whole thing.
I've done the thing on YouTube with the video where it gets twice as fast every time he says honey or bee or whatever. I think it's B, right?
Every variation exists. Every variation exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen the memes. I've seen the B-movie memes. Barry B. Benson, like jazz, all that good stuff. But I've never actually seen it.
That's like such a perfect example of movie I would have taken my sister to see and gone like, oh, I gotta take care of my sister, but really I wanted to see B-movie, or would have dragged a bunch of teenage friends to go see under the auspices of it being an ironic viewing. And instead I was like, I have to make tough choices here. Either I go see No Country for Old Men or B-movie. Only one car ride is gonna happen this week.
So, number 3 at the box office was a big Oscar contender that didn't really pan out, but it was a hit. It's a pretty good movie.
American
Gangster?
Gangster?
Crime movie. Yes. American Gangster. Ridley Scott's American Gangster.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you know what I mean, Griff? Like, that was the front runner. It was just kind of like, wow, come on. Like, this thing is just going to completely destroy. And I remember it being fine.
And
I'd
a big fucking hit. And the album sells a ton. And then it gets just Ruby D, right?
It gets Ruby D, and maybe that was the only nomination. You don't like American Gangster?
I saw it. I have no memory of it whatsoever.
I don't have much memory of it. It had an art direction. I remember it looking good, like costumes.
It's got some mood. It's
uptown. Yeah.
I remember it being fine.
I Ridley Scott at the, I mean,
oh, don't you dare. No, you be careful.
I mean, like, I don't know if you're gonna. He's made a lot of boring movies.
I agree with you, Jordan.
How dare you? This is outrageous and disgusting. This is deplorable. Stop the count.
I would watch Beowulf any day of the week over 85% of Ridley Scott's output.
Oh, wow.
I can't even litigate that. We have to move on to number 4 at the box office.
You want to litigate it, you might want to hire a counselor.
I do
That's
like
exactly
the Counselor. Counselor, Blade Runner, and Alien.
Slaps. Counselor's like his Beowulf.
That's it.
If the Counselor slapped you, you'd fucking end up in like the Bahamas. That's how hard it slaps. It would slap you across the country.
Ben, have you ever seen The Counselor?
I have not.
It's maybe the closest anyone's come to making night eggs.
Oh,
yes.
Fuck. All right. Scum and The Counselor on my list.
Right. The Counselor is also the scummiest movie of the decade. But anyway, look, we can get on The Counselor. It's too late for us to delve into that right now because we have to talk about the Christmas comedy.
Fucks a car. Oh, the Christmas comedy.
That is number 4 at the box office.
Oh, I know what it is. Fred Claus.
It is Fred Claus.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
With Vince Vaughn, Paul Giamatti as a Jewish Santa Claus. He's not really, but
Is that a Dennis? Is that a Dennis Dugan joint?
No,
It's not.
It's fucking
David Dobkin.
David Dobkin, the judge himself, who finally made a good movie this year.
What was his movie?
Eurovision, baby.
Eurovision.
Eurovision.
I take a Fred Claus over that.
All right. Number 5. It's new this week. It's the other movie that I covered the red carpet for.
Lions for Lambs.
It's not Lions for Lambs.
What?
That is number 8. That is number 8.
God.
So
I'm
that's
so
out.
Confident. Okay.
That's another one where I covered the red carpet. Now
Right.
this one, how to even explain this movie?
Give me a
it's got
genre.
a silly title. Family. It's a family film. It's new this
Family
week.
movie.
It's a bomb.
2007. Silly
Does
title.
it star an African American comic?
It does not. It stars it stars 2 Oscar-winning actors. I think one of them had not yet won her Oscar.
Oh, it's Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium.
It's Mr. Megorium's Oscar Emporium. It's about how they make the trophies.
They make the trophies. It's Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium.
Yeah.
Zach Helms, Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium with Dustin Hoffman, Natalie Portman, Jason Bateman, right? He's the
Yes.
villain, maybe.
I mean, fundamentally, a movie representing the last gasps before studios let algorithms decide which movies got made. Like, that's a movie that a computer never greenlights.
Yeah, computers like the trap door opens before you even get to the pitch meeting. Right.
Right.
Yeah, Grendel shows up for those. Yeah.
He was such a hot spec screenwriter. He had written Stranger Than Fiction, and people were like, is this guy Diet Charlie Kaufman? Is he Charlie Kaufman but commercial?
Right.
And off of the excitement of that movie, Sony greenlit his directorial film. They were like, you're going to win an Oscar in 2006. So 2007, we'll hit him with a family comedy. And he got fucking Dustin Hoffman, Natalie Portman, and Jason Bateman.
He hasn't made a movie since.
No.
Hey, you make it it's like Harper Lee. You know, you knock it out of the park, and then why go back? You know, it's Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium.
I hope like 50 years from now when he's on death's bed, his children are like, our father made a follow-up. He never wanted it released. It's the ghost at a Watchmen of old man Megorium.
Right. Turns out he was a total racist. Count Griff. Number 6 is Dan in Real Life.
Put on my tab.
Put it on my tab. Number 7 is No Country for Old Men. In its second week, expanding, getting ready to win an Oscar. You also have Lions for Lambs. You have Saw 4, the 4th of the Saws.
So Mandalore, Custis
Yeah,
Mandalore
Mandalore
is running
everywhere.
the table in this box office.
That is a great point. That was
That's
when
a big
Costas
week for
Mandalore
Costas.
was fucking at the high roller table for 1 to 2 years, dining out on Saws 3 to 6, I want to say, something like that. Like, he's in a lot of them.
Folding the box office like laundry.
Was he? There was a character named Hoffman in the Saw movies.
He is Hoffman.
He's
He is
Hoffman.
Hoffman. He's kind of the main character of every Saw movie that no one remembers.
He becomes the main detective, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And he probably eventually turns into, I don't know, a bear trap or whatever. I don't know what happened. That movie gets that series is very convoluted. Yeah.
That franchise is such a cash cow for him because his quote went up to like $65,000 per Saw movie.
I mean, if he used a skill saw, it really would have been good. But
I mean, hopefully Spiral, once we open the book of Saw.
We have to open the book of Saw. We need the vaccine so we can open the book of Saw. It has to happen.
This isn't natural. We're not supposed to live this way. We're supposed to have opened the book of Saw months ago.
Yes. All right. We did it.
We did it. Jordan, what a pleasure.
I don't know why
It
that was funny,
was.
but it was. Yeah, it was all right. It was all right.
Fun time.
It was all right.
No, it
Talking
was great.
Beowulf with the boys?
I'm telling you something. I watched Beowulf again earlier today for the first time in 13 years. And I had a good I like this movie. It's so confounding to me.
I was
am Beowulf.
positive on it in theaters. I hadn't seen it since. I bought it on iTunes when I saw it on sale recently, knowing we were going to have to cover it. And my takeaway is I'm buying that fucking Blu-ray so I can watch picture in picture. Like, I will watch Beowulf again at some point in my life, voluntarily.
Sure. I'm going to do it right now. And it's funny because I am not a Zemeckis completist. You know, there's a lot of his stuff I haven't seen.
Such as?
I've never seen Polar Express or Christmas Carol.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's okay.
You're not missing much.
Yeah, you're all right.
Christmas Carol's the last one I haven't seen. I've seen every movie he released since then.
I missed The Walk.
Sure.
I missed a few others, but
Yeah, you don't need to go for a walk.
Yeah, you can take a seat. You're fine.
What if The Walk had been such a hit,
The Seat.
he had to make
Yeah.
a sequel called The Seat?
The rest. The nap.
I liked Allied. I liked,
Hey, Jordan, yes! I'm all about Allied. David's been shitting on Allied since day one. For years, I've been
That's not
defending
true.
Allied on this podcast. It's the number one reason I'm excited to do
Yeah,
Zemeckis,
Allied's good.
because I want justice for Allied. I think David's going to rewatch it.
I think I was
that
probably
it
in the theater with
roll.
you, David, when we saw Allied.
Yeah, it was days after Trump got elected, and you had long predicted his victory, and I would always get so mad at you, and then you were right.
I know. I am one of my. I'm upset about that, but I knew. Somehow I know. Oh, did he know? But it's funny. There's a couple of his biggies that I've never seen. I've for whatever reason never got around to Castaway,
Sure.
and I never saw What Lies Beneath either.
Good movie.
I guess that year is the same year they came out. I watched neither of them.
You'd like those. You should check those out.
Yeah, I probably should. And I was Death Becomes Her. I know was a big cult hit. I remember seeing that in the theater and not being on its wavelength at all.
You might be 28 years on. You might be. Who knows? But anyway.
Yeah, I might like it now.
All three of those movies are more interesting now, just as like, wow, they let people make these.
All right. But anyway, you were wrapping us up, Griff. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no. Yeah, we're wrapping it up. We all got stuff to do. Just real quick, it's good seeing you guys,
Oh, wait, Ben, Jordan, weren't you going to announce something, or did I make that up? Did I forget that?
Oh, no. I was. Now it's late. Well, by the time this airs, because we've already recorded, I'm doing a new podcast.
Whoa.
For those who liked the mellifluous sounds of my dulcet tones. A friend of mine, maybe you guys know him. His name is John DeVore. He's an internet guy.
Yeah.
He's a writer. He's an award-winning writer. He's the real deal. He's won a bunch of crap. John DeVore is obsessed with the movie with David Lynch's Dune.
Yes.
So we have recorded a mini series called the Dune Conversations.
Mm-hmm.
4 30-minute shows allegedly about the movie Dune. And by now, hopefully it's out and people are listening to it, or at least they can if they want.
Hell yeah. Check it out in the show description. We'll have links.
Oh yeah, links. Yeah, forget about links.
Yeah, great plug, Jordan. Unfortunately, I think it is going to fall on deaf ears. I cannot imagine that appealing to our listenership. A very obsessive, dorky mini series about a film that most people dismiss. I don't think you're barking up the right tree, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
That sounds great. Can't wait.
Really quick, guys, next week, just remind the fans, my Untitled Slow Christmas album is slated to be released around the A Christmas Carol episode. So let's
God, I forgot.
Stay tuned for that.
Yes, let's.
Yes, of course. By all means, please keep your eyes peeled to Blank Check social media accounts for information on the
Correct.
drop of Ben Hosley's Slow Christmas album. And thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks to Ange Fergudo for our social media, Lane Montgomery for our theme song, Joe Bone, Pat Reynolds for our artwork. Go to blankies.reddit.com for some real nerdy shit, and go to patreon.com/blankcheck for Blank Check special features where we're digging into those Ridley Scott alien movies as he comes back on the
That's
franchise.
right.
Makes you ask a lot of questions about God.
Can't wait.
Garden Roberts. Tune in next week for Christmas Carol and Ben's album.
Oh yeah.
I want to hear that.
Of course.
And as always, Robert Zemeckis is the only filmmaker with the courage to do an entire action sequence in the style of Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me's opening credit sequence.